Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tempe City Council regular council meeting. Item number 1 is call to order. Council meetings can be watched in real time via Cox Cable Channel 11 and at tempe.gov/tempe11. Members of the public may also attend the meeting virtually through Microsoft Teams. If you're here to speak on items designated as public hearing items later on in the agenda, please know that you will have an opportunity to speak when I introduce those items at the time of their public hearing. The City Council and I will need to complete the other items of business leading up to those items, so we appreciate your patience. If you wish to speak on a public hearing item, you haven't filled out a speaker card yet, please make sure to fill out and submit your completed card to the city clerk prior to the agenda item coming forward for council discussion. I will call your name when it is your turn for public comment. Now I'd like to invite everyone who's able and willing to stand to join me in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Just want to also note very quickly, too, that Councilmember Keating as well as Councilmember Hodge are both virtual this evening, so they are definitely attending. Tonight's agenda has a number of items that the City Council must consider in order to conduct city business. Guidelines for conduct at City Council meetings are on the table near the entrance for those in attendance at tonight's meeting. We will now play a video with the proper protocol for ensuring the appropriate conduct at City Council meetings.
We wish to acknowledge that Tempe is the homeland of the Native people.
Okay, well, that's the Native Land Acknowledgement Statement, so we'll do the land acknowledgement statement, and then we'll go back to do the rules of order.
We wish to acknowledge that Tempe is the homeland of the Native people who have inhabited this landscape since time immemorial. These ancestral lands of the O'odham, known as Pima, Peeposh, known as the Maricopa, and their ancestors extend far beyond our city. This land continues to be spiritually connected to the O'odham of the Salt River Pima, Maricopa Indian Community, and Gila River Indian Community. We accept the responsibility of stewarding those places and solemnly pledge to consider this commitment in every action.
All right, thank you very much. We're now going to talk about the proper protocol for ensuring the appropriate conduct at City Council meetings. We can roll that video as well.
The City of Tempe welcomes public comment at this time. Disruptive behavior will not be allowed. Continued disruptive behavior will lead to removal from the council chambers. We need to be able to hear everyone in the room. Behavior that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of any city council meeting is not helpful and is not permitted. This includes behavior both inside and outside of the council chambers. Should individuals inside the council chambers become disruptive so that city business is not able to be conducted, the mayor will first ask that the individuals allow city business to be completed. There will be time for public comment during the call to the audience portion of the meeting. If no cooperation, the mayor will issue a verbal warning and let them know that the continued disruptive behavior will lead to removal from the council chambers. If there is still no cooperation, the mayor will issue a second verbal warning and let them know that the continued disruptive behavior will lead to removal from the council chambers. If there is no cooperation after asking and 2 verbal warnings, then the mayor will ask security officers to remove only those individuals who are causing the disruption. Security personnel should not engage in any way, but only escort them from the council chambers. If individuals refuse to leave, security personnel shall warn them that they are trespassing and that the next step will be arrest by a Tempe police officer. Tempe officers may have to arrest if individuals refuse to leave. Charges for trespass and disorderly conduct may apply, as well as other charges. Should anyone be asked to be removed, the mayor will recess the meeting.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to turn next to item number 4, which are our meeting minutes. And tonight I'll be assisted by Councilmember Chin. Councilmember Chin.
Thank you, Mayor. I submit first for approval item 4A1.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Chin and seconded by Councilmember Keating. Please vote.
Yes.
Aye.
And that item passes 7-0. Next up, we have item 4B, acceptance of board, commission, and committee meeting minutes. Councilmember Chin.
Thank you, Mayor. I submit for acceptance items 4B1 through 4B4.
It's been moved by Councilmember Chin. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Garland. Please vote.
Yes.
Aye.
And that item also was approved unanimously, 7-0. Next up, we have mayor's reports and announcements. I'm going to step down front here. All right, item 5A1 is our Pride Month proclamation. Is there anyone here to receive that this evening? If not, I will hold on to it and then give it to someone later on. But the Pride Month proclamation reads, whereas the city of Tempe is deeply committed to equality for all, and whereas the LGBTQ plus community has fought tirelessly for equality and the rights and protections they deserve at home, at work, and in the public. And whereas the fight for LGBTQ plus equality continues across Arizona, the United States, and the entire world, and the city of Tempe is a committed partner in this effort. And whereas in 2014, the Tempe City Council established protections for LGBTQ plus individuals from discrimination at home, work, and in public spaces, which then were enshrined by voters in 2015 in the Tempe City Charter by an overwhelming majority. Since the passage of these protections, the city of Tempe has received a perfect score of the Human Rights Campaign's Municipal Equality Index. And whereas the city of Tempe has an LGBTQ plus alliance called Tempe Pride and celebrates the great diversity of our employees, including those identifying as LGBTQ plus, and joins them in celebrating Pride for who they are. And whereas Tempe will proudly participate in Pride events throughout the region with dignitaries, public safety officials, and city employees, all unified to support the LGBTQ plus community as they remember their history and commit to continuing the work towards true equality for all people, no matter who they are or who they love. And whereas the city of Tempe is proud to celebrate Pride with the help of the Downtown Tempe Authority, who is showing their support with special Pride flags installed on lampposts along Mill Avenue, and the organization of the annual Tempe Pride Party. Now therefore I, Corey Woods, Mayor of the city of Tempe, Arizona, do hereby declare June 2024 as Pride Month in Tempe, Arizona. And Dr. Humes? Anyone want to be in the photo here? But come on down.
You want to hold it?
Oh, no, you can see. Yeah, you got it. And then Eddie's coming down with the camera.
Oh, the real camera. What about the official camera? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have our Juneteenth proclamation. And do we have anyone here to receive the Juneteenth proclamation? All right, once again, I'm going to hold on to this one for a while too. So, actually, Dr. Humes, can you come? Perfect. Yeah, don't go too far on me. All right, so this proclamation reads, whereas President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, formally abolishing slavery, and on June 19th, 1865, after 2.5 years, the executive decree was finally fully enforced throughout the Confederate States when Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, to ensure all enslaved people were declared legally free. And whereas Juneteenth has been called the second Independence Day for the United States and began a post-emancipation period where formerly enslaved people began the brutal journey of reunifying families, obtaining education, acquiring private property, and running for elected office. And whereas Juneteenth is a day on which we, as a society, pay honor to those Americans who were enslaved and recognize the evils of slavery and how its aftermath has shaped our nation. And whereas Juneteenth is also a day of reflection and renewal, as we show appreciation for the many valuable contributions and sacrifices made by African Americans to our society. And whereas the Tempe African American Advisory Committee, through the support of the Tempe History Museum, the Tempe Black Employee Alliance, and the Strategic Management and Diversity Office, work together to celebrate Juneteenth and honor our state and nation's strong African American heritage, and remember the lives of those who were enslaved as part of that history. And whereas we honor through this celebration the life and contributions of Michelle Lynn Brooks Tatras on the anniversary of her passing, for her outstanding leadership of the AAAC, her support of TBEA, and for establishing the annual Juneteenth celebration of freedom in the city of Tempe, which is now in its 11th year. And whereas the transformative work of equity, inclusion, and reform must be shared by all in order to ensure that the unalienable rights of all people to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas Tempe recommits itself to the values of inclusion, equity, justice, and reform in recognition of this important day in our country's history. Now, therefore, I, Corey Woods, Mayor of the City of Tempe, Arizona, do hereby declare as an official city holiday, June 19th, 2024, as Juneteenth in Tempe, Arizona.
I know that's something dear to my heart.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, next up, item 5A3, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Green Power Partnership recognizing City of Tempe green power use with Arizona Public Service. All right, I see some folks coming forward, so I'll start reading here. So today we celebrate Tempe's recognition by the United States Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, as a green power partner for purchasing green power voluntarily. This honor underscores our city's steadfast commitment to sustainability and environmental stewardship. In 2018, our City Council set an ambitious goal, achieving carbon neutrality in municipal operations by the year 2050, with a 100% renewable energy strategy by 2035. And joining us today is Arizona Public Service, and I want to take a moment to recognize and applaud APS for being instrumental in our journey towards carbon neutrality by adding more renewable energy to their portfolio and supplying Tempe with green power, helping us reach our council goal. APS supplies our city with nearly 11.6 million kilowatt hours of green energy, equivalent to powering over 1,000 homes per year. So I want to thank APS for their dedication to a cleaner, greener future. And thank you to the EPA for recognizing Tempe as a city leading the charge toward a sustainable future. And I also, of course, want to thank our Sustainability and Resilience Department for all the work that they do in shepherding through these very important initiatives, not only to the City Council, but frankly to each and every member of our community. So thank you very much. Thank you. All right, next up, item 5A4, Green Business Certification for Local First Arizona and Capital Coffee. So I want to call up, is Nick here? From, oh, there we go, from Local First Arizona, as well as Nikki and Sebastian Ramirez. Oh, they've got the little one with them. I love it. No, you don't ever have to apologize for bringing cuteness into the council chambers. That is, there's never a need for an apology for that. How are you? Good. So I want to make sure that I thank everyone about the fact that every coffee bean that has ever been harvested, dried, roasted, ground, and brewed into the beverage that the world enjoys each and every day has been picked by hand. We have the coffee harvesters and farmers to thank for supplying this amount of coffee, not only to the city of Tempe, but to the entire globe. So just a little bit of detail here. Much of the world's coffee changes hands 20 to 30 times before it reaches the person who will ultimately enjoy it, often between middlemen that aren't adding any value to the product and have no concern for the country of origin and the people that make it possible, just passing it along and then collecting their profits. But this is not so at Capital Coffee, located right here on College Street in the city of Tempe. Owners Nikki and Sebastian Ramirez sourced coffee directly from their rainforest certified family farm on a mountain in Santa Barbara, Colombia, started more than 60 years ago by Sebastian's great-grandfather. Coffee sourced in this way ensures incredible quality and that everyone in the value chain, from the coffee picker to the barista, is fairly supported. They are a strong player in our local economy, sourcing baked goods, roasting services, distribution services, and authentic Colombian arepa from small local businesses in the area. Cafe Talk Coffee is a local first Arizona newest green business certified company here in Tempe. They're implementing new business practices that reduce their impact on the environment, both here in Tempe and in the rainforest where their coffee is grown. This council deeply supports our small business community and even more so, celebrate those who are conducting business without harm to our environment. So I encourage everyone here in the audience and those folks watching at home to make sure that you visit Cafe Talk Coffee tomorrow, Friday, June 7th, for your delicious cup of joe or your authentic baked good. And of course, a big thank you as well to Local First Arizona for supporting the business community with programs such as the Green Business Certification. Congratulations and thank you for all that you do.
We're at a stage right now.
Oh yeah, please, come on over. There you go. Yeah, I'll give the address too, yeah.
I guess I'm the designated speaker. We're located right here on College Avenue. If you know where Snooze and Postino's is, we're right next to Snooze, right next to the parking garage. But just real quick, we are so excited to be Green Business Certified. Thanks to Nick, he was on our case for months. And honestly, as small business owners who wear a million hats, I was like, I don't have time. And then summer came, I said, Nick, I have time, let's get together. And he's kind of going through this list with us, and he's like, wow, you already completed a lot of the things to be Green Business Certified. I was like, well, fantastic. And then he gave us some great ideas for other ways we could do that. One thing I want to mention is we give away free coffee grounds because we have like pounds and pounds on a daily basis that would be going to the landfill. So if you garden, you know someone who gardens, you compost, feel free, come by any day. You don't need to reach out. Just come over, tell the baristas you want coffee. We have buckets to give you. But really, the whole basis behind wanting to go green, become a green business really was because of the farm, his parents' farm. They do such a great job of sustainability practices and being as green and clean as they can in Colombia, and we wanted to make sure we mirrored that as we brought their coffee to our coffee shop here in Tempe. So thank you, Nick, thank you, Mayor Woods, one of our customers I recognize from years ago. Thank you all, appreciate it.
All right. Next up, item 5A5, which is our 2024 community survey. So I'm going to pull up a little slide here. So the Tempe City Council values your ongoing involvement in our community, and therefore we are requesting your assistance in providing input on the annual Tempe Community Survey. The survey is available now through July for you to share your thoughts on a wide range of city services, including public safety, parks, recreation, economic development, and code enforcement. Your input helps us to set priorities and continue to improve our services. Just a few notes. The survey is anonymous and confidential. Results from the survey will be available in November. And for more information, please contact the City of Tempe's Strategic Management and Innovation Office. Next up, item 5A6, Arts and Culture Commission and Transportation Commission appointments. I just want to congratulate Teresa Robinette, Will Lucht, and Kevin Godfrey Chevalier on their appointments to the City of Tempe Arts and Culture Commission, and Anthony Strait on his appointment to the Transportation Commission, as outlined in item 7A1 on this evening's agenda. Before I move to the city manager's reports and announcements, just wanted to do a very quick kind of point of personal privilege. Is Maria Bobby still here? Where is she? There she is. So Maria Bobby is my intern in the mayor's office. So there are quite a few people at the city of Tempe who know that when I first started, we were looking to start an internship program with Arizona State University to provide students with the opportunity to get real-world experience working in the city of Tempe's office. ASU provides all of the services, and they really help us actually identify a great collection of students from which to choose from. And this past year, through 2023 and 2024, Maria Bobby was the intern in the mayor's office. She is actually leaving my office tomorrow, which we are all extremely sad about. But she is right now studying to become a doctor. So frankly, I cannot try to hold her in my office when she's actually going to go out and actually physically save lives. But I just wanted to say to Maria, it's been a real honor and a pleasure having you in the office. You were a tremendous addition to the city of Tempe. And I'm telling you, it's true. We love having you around. And it's going to be very, very odd for me to come into the office and not to see your bright, smiling face. And I will tell you, the amount of work she actually produces as well, on top of just being an all-around incredible human being, is truly second to none. So I'm going to miss working with you, but I just wanted to say a very, very public thank you to Maria for everything you've done, not just for my office, but frankly for the entire city of Tempe. So thank you. All right, next up, item 5B, city manager's reports and announcements. Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. One announcement this evening. I'd like to welcome Benjamin Butler, our new budget director. We're very excited to have him on board. Ben started his career at the Arizona Joint Legislative Budget Committee and then transitioned to the city of Peoria in 2016, where he became the budget manager. And now he's here in Tempe, and we're very excited to have you, Ben. So help me welcome Ben, and just making sure that the community knows who's taking care of our budget. Thanks, Ben. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, next up, item number 6, public appearances. According to the Arizona Open Meeting Law, the City Council may only discuss matters listed elsewhere on this agenda for discussion and legal action. The purpose of the open call to the public is to allow individuals to address the City Council on any issue within the jurisdiction of the City Council. No person shall speak more than once, and there is a limit of 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers present at the podium must state their name and city of residence and provide a speaker card. Members of the public shall refrain from making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks and from becoming boisterous while addressing the City Council or while attending the meeting. Speakers will be taken first come, first serve in the order in which the cards are received. Speakers' visual aids and appearances by phone or recordings are not allowed. Council members are prohibited by state law from taking action on, commenting, or discussing a matter raised by a member of the public, even if asked to do so by a member of the public, so long as the subject discussed by the speaker is not listed as a specific agenda item for council's consideration for discussion and legal action. At the conclusion of public appearances, the council may ask the city manager to review a matter or place a matter on a future agenda. So tonight I've got 2 cards here. Just once again, if you have cards here speaking on specific agenda items related to development projects later on in the agenda, we're going to call you up at that time. But the 2 cards I have this evening, the first card I have is from Mario Martinez. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Mario Martinez. I live in Tempe. Public reports indicate that an expensive Tempe consultant will be hired to review the Tempe crime lab or lack thereof. Some issues can be resolved without a consultant, as I will demonstrate. While some people, not including me, do not view misdemeanor DUI offenses as something serious, nothing could be further from the truth. When a DUI driver injures or murders someone, it doesn't get any more serious than that. Therefore, it is imperative that the combination of Tempe and Mesa crime labs be able to effectively perform DUI blood tests. I was arrested for DUI after a witness told the police that I was drunk. The witness also told the investigators that I almost hit him and potentially killed him and his wife on a certain street. My GPS cell phone insurance app clearly shows that I was never even on the street that he claimed that I was on. But without verifying the story, the police and the prosecutor took the word of the witnesses for granted anyway. After my blood alcohol level proved to be 0, the Mesa Crime Lab determined that this sleeping medication, this is the exact bottle, okay, that I took the night before and I took it as prescribed, was still in my system. That's true. Although the Tempe and Mesa Crime Labs correctly detected the sleeping medication, they were too professionally ignorant to figure out what the levels were and when I used it. The bottle says use it the night before, no problem. They sent my blood samples to some place in Pennsylvania. They couldn't decide the levels. Now, out of millions of cases of DUI in the United States, this place in Pennsylvania had 4 cases dealing with my situation. That's not a big number. The inability of the Tempe police and prosecutors to proficiently obtain, use, and interpret DUI blood tests was the key legal reason why I was never convicted of any DUI offenses. With DUI enforcement losers like this, it is no wonder that DUI drivers can injure and kill people in Tempe. I should know. I sustained lifelong medical injuries that were a result of DUI driver actions. The Tempe police and prosecutors didn't prevent that DUI either. Performing DUI blood tests effectively is not rocket science. You don't need an expensive consultant to figure that out, and it should have been done already. And I want to point out that I've, as an employee of the federal government that deals with national security, I've been tested so many times. They've never found anything. And it's also routine. It's not rocket science. It should have been done already.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Appreciate it. The next speaker I have this evening is Ann Till. Please come forward and state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name's Ann Till, Tempe resident. I want to talk about the bond election and property tax increases. My property tax have increased an average of $100 a year since 2017. That's getting kind of expensive to live here as much as it's increased more rapidly in the last few years, and that impacts property owners and renters. So, you know, I'd love to have my roads fixed, but what I'd like to see is public meetings to go over the bond election details and a commitment to exactly which streets are going to be fixed and the cost per year, because I haven't seen that anywhere. So, so that would really help me with my decision on how to vote, because I'm getting older, and as I get older, I'm going to be retiring, and my income will actually go in half, and it's going to make it more difficult for me to actually stay in a house that I paid off, you know. So anyways, that's my ask. The second thing is the general plan. One of the reasons that some people opposed it was we didn't want the status quo. And there were something like 40 changes in the 2040 plan. And there's 2 proposed changes on the agenda to the general plan, and the ink's hardly, you know, been off the presses. And I also wanted to, so I oppose both, and I'll talk on those specifically. But I wanted to point out, you know, that I pointed out to you, Mayor Woods, you know, the 39 or 40 and my concern about it. And you said one of the things that you liked about the 2050 plan was that it's an accurate vision of where we need to go moving forward when it comes to things such as housing and walkability, and that would mean that it's a plan we can truly stick with far fewer amendments. because it properly documents what our future housing needs will be based on sound. So, you know, it's just been a couple months and we already want these changes, right? There's a reason why some of these were put in the land use map the way they were. So I just wanted to point that out instead of going over it on each of the ones I was going to talk on. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council tonight before public appearances? If so, please get my attention. All right, seeing none, I will close that section of the meeting. I'm going to move forward to the consent agenda, which is item number 7. All items listed on the consent agenda will be considered as a group and will be enacted with one motion by the City Council unless an item is removed for separate consideration. Members of the public may remove public hearing items for separate consideration. Public hearing items are designated as public hearing item at the beginning of the item title. Council members may remove any item for separate consideration or to declare a conflict of interest. If a council member would like to declare a conflict at this time, the city clerk will provide the council member with a disclosure form. If you wish to speak on a public hearing item, please fill out a speaker card and submit your completed card to the city clerk prior to the agenda item coming forward for council discussion. I will call your name when it is your turn for public comment. This evening, the consent agenda is listed as miscellaneous items 7A1 through 7A4, awards of bids and contracts items 7B1 through 7B14, and resolutions items 7C1 through 7C13. Once again, any agenda item designated as public hearing item can be removed by a member of the public for separate consideration. If anyone would like to have a public hearing item removed, please get my attention now. All right, seeing none, I will close that portion of the meeting. Council, any agenda items that you'd like to have removed from a consent agenda for separate consideration? None? All right, then I will look for a motion on the consent agenda. It's been moved by Councilmember Navarro.
Second.
Oof. I'm going to give that to Councilmember Hodge. Why not? Please vote.
Aye.
Yes.
And that item passes 7-0. Now, I'm going to go ahead and move some things around here this evening because, once again, we have a couple of items on the agenda that are development items. We have a lot of people who are here speaking either in person or virtually. So to really be, to respect everyone's time, I want to move those items up so the public has their chance to speak. And doesn't have to hang out all night with us if they don't want to. So let's see. I'm going to move on then first to item 8B2, which is to introduce and hold the first public hearing to adopt a resolution authorizing a general plan, land use, and density map amendment from mixed-use high up to 65 dwelling units per acre to mixed-use urban more than 65 dwelling units per acre, and adopt an ordinance for a zoning map amendment from CSS to MU4, a planned area development overlay, an appeal of a denial for a use permit to allow tandem parking, and a development plan review for a new 21-story mixed-use development with 363 dwelling units. I see Mr. Nick Wood here from Snell and Wilmer. Good evening.
Mayor, Mayor, members of the council, Nick Wood, Snell and Wilmer, 1 East Washington Street. We moved just recently. Phoenix, and I represent Landmark. If I could have the... Oh, there we go. See if this works. Give me 1 second. There we go. So before we get into the, well, let's talk about the site. So the site's at the southwest corner of the intersection of Rural and Apache. As you can see, along Apache, we have both the streetcar, and then up the block, we have light rail. On the southwest corner, it's the old Vine site. The Vine used to be an institution. In fact, when Councilmember Navarro and I used to meet, we used to meet there when it was still open and working. And but it's been closed since it's been closed since 2022, so it's been a while. And you know, as you look around in the area, you see several things. Number one, ASU is right across the street to the north of us. ASU is also across Sunset to the west of us. And then to the south of us, we have some boroughs, Voodoo Donuts and Whataburger. And then south of that also is ASU. Across rural, we have the CVS, Moxie. And as you're aware, we have a project going on there as well. Next to that is a district. As some of you may recall, I did the district, gosh, almost 8, 9 years ago. Then east of that, past Pete's, is the Marshall, another student housing project that we did, and this council actually approved last year. Across the street to the north, we have 922 Place. 922 Place was built well over 10 years ago, originally before the recession happened, and but that now is student housing as well. And then, of course, I did what is now the Carmen. At the time, it was a Rise. And then, of course, the 922 Place is 10 stories, and the Carmen is 15 stories. And you recently approved 1020 Apache at 15 stories. And as some of you may recall, I did the Apollo that's right next to that. But the idea here is to build a landmark, to build a student housing project at the southwest corner. They're under contract to acquire both the Vine site as well as the Chevron itself. One of the things that jumps out at you here is we have streets on 3 sides of the property. It's the only property within the area that actually has 3 streets. Why is that important? Well, obviously, Tempe has a very stringent requirement for streetscape. And streetscape includes sidewalks, landscaping, and everything else. And there are a number of other constraints that I'll talk about in a moment, but it's really the perfect site for this particular project. A little bit about Landmark. Landmark has been around for 20 years. It's one of the top student housing developers in the country. You know, they have their own capital that they invest. They're vertically integrated. Basically, they're their own general contractor. They handle the construction process, and they're long-term holders, and very highly regarded around the country. For example, they were #1 developer in student housing by Student Housing Business for the last 6 years. 99% average resident satisfaction. And that's really important, right? When we have our students, whether it's anybody else's kids or my kids, I want them to be in a very safe place so that they can thrive and succeed and with a company that has a relationship with ASU. Now, in this case, we actually went and we met with Dr. Vogel in Dr. Run's office, had Dr. Vogel meet with our management team, and Dr. Vogel came away very impressed and very pleased with both the way that they operate and manage their facilities, with all the security that's there. And of course, we will have a security plan that we'll negotiate with the Tempe Police Department that'll be part of the entire project. And here is where Landmark is located, pretty much in major universities all around the country. They have one in Flagstaff, they have one in Tucson. This will be, their one in Tempe. Hopefully we can get this across the finish line. And here's some examples of the quality of their design. Now, because they're a long-term holder, they take special care in developing things that will last a long time, because again, they're long-term developers. As I think you all know, I'm a former Tempe resident. I lived here for a long time and in South Tempe, and Vice Mayor and I were almost neighbors, just a couple of subdivisions apart. And I loved living here. The things I love about Tempe is the people, right? You walk down the street, people will actually say hi to you. That doesn't happen very often. I love the ambiance. There's a certain feel, right, to the city of Tempe. I love the diversity, which of course you celebrated today, and not just the diversity of the people, but the diversity of the cultures, even the diversity of opinions, right? Now, there's an old adage that says everyone has an opinion, and if you're talking to a lawyer, you'll get several. But when it comes to diversity of opinions, what I love about the people here in Tempe, it doesn't matter whether it's leadership, staff, neighbors, community leaders, even though there may be diversity of opinions, it's done in a very respectful manner. The discussions are always very respectful and very courteous. There's no nastiness. I do work all over the valley, and I can tell you that doesn't happen very often. Usually people get very emotional, and of course the first casualty of emotion is reason, and people start going off. But at every level, at every step here, we have had a very respectful and courteous dialogue and discussion. And again, I want to thank your staff, as usual. They're above and beyond, and they're problem solvers by nature, and we did a lot of work with them, as well as community leaders and others. So one of the things I try and do in order to, again, return that level of courtesy is to make sure that whatever I'm presenting, right, I can at least give some objective background and substance to it. So in looking at this particular project, there's certain things that I took into account when we first talked about doing this project with Landmark. The first and foremost is we have a housing crisis here in Tempe. In fact, we have a housing crisis throughout the valley and throughout the state. We are kind of victims of our own success, and so is Tempe. It's a wonderful place to live, which means a lot of people want to live here. We have a university, right, that has become a world-renowned, highly respected university, and people want to come here. So we have a combination of increases in enrollment, and that'll continue for as long as it does. And then, of course, we have people who want to move here. So we have an increasing population. But, of course, we have a very small footprint as far as the geographic boundaries of the city of Tempe. And trying to maintain a balance is difficult. You know, for example, building heights. Really until 2000, when U.S. Airways headquarters was built at 130 feet, really the tall buildings that were in Tempe were on ASU's campus. But after 2000, we've all seen how everything has gone vertical and taller and taller and taller. And I think there's a reason for that. And the reason really comes down to what's on this graphic. Tempe today is the 9th largest city in the state of Arizona. The 2024 population, at least under World Population Review, is estimated to be 190,220 people. The census from 2020 revealed 181,000. So you've grown by almost 10,000 people in 4 years in the city of Tempe, as has the enrollment in ASU. That creates a tremendous demand on housing. It creates it for not only for residents, right, new residents, existing residents, families especially, but also for students. So it becomes a challenge, right, for all of us on how to meet that need while still doing things that are necessary. One is protecting neighborhoods against encroachment, but also creating a situation where neighborhoods aren't filled with students, and that's not a criticism. If I own a single-family home and I've got 3 students ready to pay me $1,200 or $1,500 a month, that's a lot of money versus what a family can pay. So providing alternative housing for students is very important, and you've done a great job of that. And it's been very successful so far, but the enrollment continues to grow. And as you can see, the population continues to grow. But the biggest challenge is when you look at the density category in the area in square miles. You have the highest density of people per square mile than any other city, any of the other, actually probably in the state. You have 4,758 people per square mile. That's much larger than anybody else. Yet your square miles in geographic boundaries is 39.98, the smallest by a huge margin. And then when you think that ASU's campus is probably 1 square mile, you take another number off of that. So the challenge, and I admire you for addressing it, is how do we make sure that we're providing adequate housing for residents of the city of Tempe, existing and new, for students that go to ASU with continuing increase in enrollment, while still, again, maintaining balance and protecting neighborhoods from encroachment. So that was my approach when I started sitting down and talking to my clients, talking to staff, talking to neighborhoods. The other thing is, at least it's been the policy for some time, and someone told me that policy may be changing. But the policy for the longest time by this council, and it's unwritten, was where do we put student housing? We don't want it downtown. In fact, Landmark, my client, attempted to put a student housing project downtown a number of years ago, and it was denied by the city council at that time. Again, the policy was we don't want student housing downtown. We want more market rate, right? We want, again, that balance. So I have focused my attention on all my student housing clients on this triangle. Of course, a triangle, you have rural on the west side, you have Apache on the south, and you have terrace on the east. And, you know, as I mentioned, you know, we did the district you know, it's 7 stories just east of rural. And then we did the Rise, which is a Carmen across the street. We did the Marshall, we did Apollo, we did Canvas. I've got another one tonight at University Valley. So we've focused on all of the student housing here. And the rationale, at least at the time, when I was told that this is where we'd like to have student housing, is it's right across the street from the campus. And we have streetcar right here, and we have light rail right here. And it's the best place, right, to put students, and certainly the most convenient place to put students. So in looking at the site, again, in my mind, it made sense that this would be the appropriate location for that. The site itself is an interesting site. It's not a square, it's not a rectangle, it looks kind of like a Tetris piece. And you have the Vine site and you have the gas station. But again, I mentioned to you that there's challenges to the site. Along Rural Road, we have a significant setback that we're going to have to provide. We're going to have to dedicate some of the land that's currently within that yellow line, which is the property line, for a bus stop. And then we're going to have to build a bus shelter, and we're going to have to provide lots of landscaping as much as we can. But another challenge is we have 69 kV lines that run right along that side of the road. So we have to move the building back not only for the bus pickup and drop off and the shelter, but we also have to move the building back in order to keep it away from those power lines. We can't put the power lines underground, A, because it's prohibitively expensive, B, because APS won't let us, and C, because there's already stuff underneath there that would prohibit that from happening. So that limits what we can do from a design standard as well. And we have the same issues along Apache, although strictly we don't have the power lines. But you can see that the property line is jagged, and we basically have to move things back. And then, as I mentioned, we have streets on 3 sides, so we have to basically design around, the need for having adequate shade, 8-foot sidewalks, and all the other things that go into streetscape design. That's mandatory, not just in Tempe, but really every place else. And then the last challenge is fire. When the fire marshal took a look at this, understandably, the fire marshal said, well, we don't want to stop trucks and things on Apache. We don't want to stop on rural. We really want to come down and have to come down on Sunset, but Sunset dead ends. We don't back up big major trucks. So basically you have to provide space for us to come in, pull in, and then do whatever is necessary for the call for service and then back out and turn around so that they can now come out Sunset straight forward rather than trying to back up on Sunset, because trying to back up a truck, and Councilman Navarro would know better than any of us, how do you back into Apache? You just really can't. So, and when we talk about projects, especially residential, right, we hear too tall, too dense, too much traffic, and crime. Well, we went ahead and got a call for service report just for the Chevron station. And of course, you can see the calls for service from January 1 of 22 till April 30 of 24. The good news is those kinds of things will go away with respect to this project. Secondly is traffic. We hear about traffic quite a bit whenever we're doing any kind of residential. So we had our traffic engineer do an analysis. And the analysis is what kind of traffic generation would we have at our first iteration, which of course is larger than what I'm going to present you tonight with more parking. But basically, our proposed development would have about 1,000 trips per day. That's using whatever scientific method traffic engineers use. I don't understand it. They tell me what it is, and I go, okay. And we have the AM peak hours, we have the PM peak hours, and essentially they compared that to the existing uses. Now, we know that the Vine is not doing business, but if it ever reopened or they replaced it with something similar, we took a look at the traffic that would be generated by the existing uses and the Vine. And of course, they would generate more traffic and have in the past generated more traffic. And then of course, when you see the cars leaving the Chevron station, sometimes people are a little adventurous with the way that they leave and cross, and sometimes even try and cross the tracks. I mentioned earlier about protecting neighborhoods from encroachment. I've been doing this over 40 years, and I have done hundreds of multifamily housing projects, often close to single-family home subdivisions. And when you get close to single-family home subdivisions, there are criteria that come into place that are just not only, accepted land planning criteria, but just respect, right? And usually it's privacy. You don't want to put a tall building next to somebody's house, because now they're concerned about people looking in their backyard, looking into their home, their bedrooms, their living room, looking into their life. So one of the things I looked at when we started this process was really the distance that this property is from the existing single-family home subdivisions, especially the historic ones. We are almost a quarter-mile away from University Park. We're a quarter-mile away from University Heights, and we're about a half a mile away from Hudson Manor. And that was important because, again, we don't want to encroach into neighborhoods. We don't want to get close to neighborhoods. And with ASU between us, for example, in University Park, and ASU between us and University Heights, what ASU is going to do, ASU is going to do. I often hear the term precedent, right? Well, that's usually a legal term. And for example, if a Supreme Court makes a decision in a certain fact situation, a lower court is compelled to follow that direction when they're making a determination on how to handle the lower court matter. When it comes to legislative processes, it's your prerogative. You have a legislative prerogative to approve or not approve anything. And if someone says, well, you gave them this height over here, you must give me this height over here, well, that's not actually true. Because again, you have that discretion. That's the difference between the judicial use of the word precedent and the use of the word precedent in here. But again, we thought ASU doesn't need to look at us and say, well, they have a tall building, we can build a tall building. But basically they're going to do what they're going to do. And we understand that, we respect that. And I have great respect for, anyone who either disagrees with this or, wants it smaller or wants it shorter. I don't take any of that personally. I understand. All I'm doing is explaining our rationale for how we got to where we are today. And and then of course we looked at if someone was standing out of the street. Now the neighborhood doesn't come out to the street, right? There's commercial between the neighborhood and Apache. But if you're standing on Apache, and of course the neighborhood would be about a half a block to the south, this is what they would see at that distance. And as you can see, privacy is certainly not an issue, and encroaching on a neighborhood wouldn't be an issue. Now, this is at, what you see here is at 21 stories. It's 20 stories on the other side. What I'm going to show you tonight is a little bit shorter. The site itself, I mentioned the power lines. You can see them very clearly in this photo. We can't touch them, we can't move them. We have to move our building back away from them. As you can see, there's no bus stop there today where there's a pull-in, right? I mean, basically, the bus has to stop out on the street, which is not a safe situation, but we would create a pull-in and a shelter and shade and other things. So as we provide all of that and dedicate that land, we have to push the building back. In fact, the building will be 30 feet from the back of curb until the frontage of the building. And of course, as you can see here, there's no shade. It's not a very welcoming pedestrian experience at all. And there's lots of traffic coming out of that. And of course, Divine, as I mentioned, has been closed since 2022. So again, you can see where the site is vis-a-vis this triangle. We, like I said, one of the things I admire about your staff is they don't tell you, we disagree with this, without having a discussion on the rationale, right? And then rolling up sleeves and saying, okay, let's go to work. So as you see here, we had 9 meetings with staff. I didn't attend more than, I think, one of them because I'm just a lawyer and I don't know anything about design. My wife dresses me. I have no taste in anything. So when it comes to design and design standards and criteria, I know very little. But our architects, and the design folks, along with the client, came in or in person in many cases, and sometimes through Zoom. And in each case, there was an evolution of the design of this building, one which is very unique. And in fact, it's in the staff report to the standpoint of that uniqueness. So here's some of their comments in your staff report. And I'll just read a couple of them. You know, in the first one, the use of louvered, corrugated, perforated metal panels in a complement of cool and warm colors, and use of textured insulated panel with reflective metallic surface provides newer materials that complement the more traditional materials, such as brick and glazing. I love what they say in the next one, that the plans provide dimensional shifts in the wall plane from 2 inches to 23 feet. On any one elevation, the larger massing is broken down by changes in material of color and texture and color, utilizing natural light to create surface change in depth of recessed and projected elements, which will create a sense of movement based upon a time of day. I've been doing this a long time. I've never heard anybody say anything like that. And in the last one, I really like the last one. As demonstrated in the elevations and renderings, the design provides significant architectural detail exceeding any of the surrounding structures or student housing developments. This would be the best of the best. And as I walk you through all of this, I think you'll see how, again, this has evolved. We arrived here. Here's our conceptual site plan and our landscape plan. As you can see on the rural side of it, you can see how far that building is set back. The reason is that that gray rectangle you see there, that's the shelter for the bus turnout. And of course, that, you know, those little squares that look like tiles, that's where the bus pullout is. So we have to make that dedication so where the buses can come in, come off of the street, and pick up people safely. You can see the landscaping that we have, and of course the corner. And we have pavers everywhere. We're not even using regular concrete for any of these sidewalks. And then along Apache, you can see how we have almost 5,000 square feet, about 4,700 square feet of retail, and areas where we can put outdoor dining, and chairs and tables and other things. And you can see the landscaping along there, and how far back it's set back. And then along Sunset, you know, again, you can see the landscaping. We have 8-foot sidewalks, for example, that we have along Apache and we have along Rural. And then on the bottom, that gray area, that's the fire pull-in and pull-out. So as we design this, and as more and more things kind of squeezed, you know, the building back, it's like a balloon. You squeeze a balloon and it kind of gets taller. And then, you know, there's other design that's unique to this. We have 2 levels of underground parking. There's not another student housing project that has done that. Underground parking is expensive. It's blowing your mind expensive. And then, of course, we have parking above. But most of the time when you see parking above, right, you can tell it's parking. There's either, it's not open anymore, those days have long passed, but they have other types of siding and things on it that you can still tell it's a parking garage. Well, here they've actually wrapped the parking structure with units. So it's not fake units, they're real units that are back up against a parking structure, which again, you know, the parking structure now gets in. And, you know, we have cars basically coming in off of Sunset and out onto Rural. But, you know, and then we create this sense of arrival on the corner of Sunset and Apache, where the lobby happens to be. So as we've made these changes, this is what we brought to DRC. We have a 1-acre site. Again, it's small. We had building height of 20 and 21 stories at 245 feet, 363 dwelling units. And then the breakdown of the units between studios, 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. We were parking in at a ratio of about 0.35. And then, of course, lots of bicycle parking spaces and separated, you know, gated bicycle parking spaces within the parking garage itself. But now we've lowered the building and made it smaller. So now it's 18 and 19 stories rather than 20 and 21. Now 18 stories is just 3 stories taller than the Carmen, which was the rise that I did. And I remember the consternation and the hand-wringing when we did that at 15 stories. Because really the tallest building in the area at the time was 922, which was at 10 stories. But it worked out, and it worked out pretty well. So now we have a shorter building, so we have fewer bedrooms. down to 872. We still have the same amount of commercial. We didn't cut back on that at all. The parking ratios are still the same at 0.35, and we still have the same amount of bicycle spaces at 392. We have two areas of amenity space. One is a passive amenity space, basically on what is the 6th floor level. And then we have the greater amenity space up on the roof. And you can see the building. You know, I talked about Tetris. You can see how this building is now designed. It's almost like it's two buildings, right? Basically in two Tetris shapes that won't match if you're playing the game. But it's essentially, you know, they're at right angles to each other. So we have a lot of space, we have a lot of depth, we have a lot of movement. And we don't have a monolithic structure anymore, because most of these are tall buildings end up being monolithic structures simply because it's cheaper. So here's that sense of arrival that I mentioned. This is the corner, this is the entry into the lobby for the student area. And on the left is Apache, and on the right is Sunset. And these are sustainability features. Landmark is big on sustainability, even EV charging stations. You know, we'll have 4 stalls, plus 5% of all the stalls will be convertible to EV, depending upon the demands of the residents. But the idea is, as you can see here, in fact, it's probably better out here. So above the glassed area, you can see those units. There's a parking structure behind it. And that's what I mean about wrapping the thing in the parking structure. Even the windows and the shade and all of the movement and things that you've read in your staff report about the design. And this was the result of all of the rework and the evolution. Now, this was the original one at 20 and 21 stories. Again, you can see at the ground level, we have glass, we have the commercial on the corner, the bus pullout and everything else. And then you see those basic 4 stories above it of units. That wraps the parking structure. And then there's a step back of 26 feet, basically from the surface to the building, and then the building moves up and higher, and then, of course, it separates because it's those 2 L shapes, and it's 20 stories here and 21, but we've lowered it, right, since DRC. So we've lowered it down basically to 18 and 19 stories. So the 18-story element, as I mentioned, is just 3 stories taller than the rise and 3 stories taller than the one that you recently approved right next to the rise. As you can see, we've taken a level out of the parking garage, so basically we still have the units wrapping the parking garage, it's just shorter and smaller. And here again is that corner, a little bit better picture than the one I originally showed you. You can see the landscaping along Apache, the trees, the landscaping, the outdoor area for seating and other things, the great 8-foot wide sidewalks. But, as you look at the building itself, all of the movement and all of the really the unique features that, again, this is pretty special. And this is now the one that's revised. We took out another level. So basically, we have the 2 and 3 levels above it rather than the 4 with the parking structure behind it. We had a request for some tandem parking spaces for 22. That's what the use permit was about. The idea is, we have students living in the same unit. It's just like people in a family, they have tandem spaces. They just work together. And they have so many, units across the country that, it always works out well for them. As far as the zoning is concerned, we're going from what is commercial shopping center, basically the MU4 PAD. When we originally filed for our general plan amendments, there were 2 of them. As you can see, we did our preliminary filing back in September of 2023, last year. And, we were commercial, but we changed it to mixed use. Now, this is the 2040 plan. The 2050 plan, of course, changed that and made it all mixed use anyway. And then, as far as the density, under the 2040 plan, which this is, as you can see, on the left-hand side, when we did the Marshall that you approved last year, we actually had to do a general plan amendment to create more density for that particular project. So that's why there's that dark, chocolate area on the south side. That's where the Marshall is. So we filed a corresponding one for this particular corner as well. And again, we did this back in September, months before 7 months, before the election for the 2050 plan. And of course, this was the 2050 plan. Now, what you did with the 2050 plan, what was approved by the voters, was increasing the density on the south side of Apache on the east side of rural. So where we had that one lone Marshall change in density, right now, that entire area, so if we filed that today, we wouldn't need to have a general plan amendment. But one of the things that you can see is on these corners, right, with the exception of the green on the ASU site, right, which is basically reserved really for open space area in the future, even around that is all 65 and over. But then on the southwest corner, it's not. But this is an intersection with two major arterials. And under general principles of land use planning, you typically on your intersections that are high volume, high capacity intersections, that's where you typically put your density, your intensity, and your height. And that's what I learned years and years ago. So again, and this is just me, this is my opinion, is it would make sense to have the four corners have that same kind of general plan amendment, which is why we made that application. In the 2050 plan, we are also in your the character area, which is the Rio Salado, downtown ASU, Northwest neighborhoods character area. When you look at an aerial of Tempe, all of your high-rise buildings are located within that character area. You get outside that character area, you don't have that. And again, that makes a lot of sense because you choose areas for planning purposes, and that's where your high-rise buildings will go. The 2050 plan also lays out land use hubs. Now, there's one land use hub that's right there on Apache Boulevard, kind of up in the middle. It goes left to right. And it actually crosses and includes our property. So you can see where the star is, right? That's our property right there on Apache and Rural. And if I go back, you can see that the hub actually extends over onto our side of the street. When we look at the growth area and innovation hubs, right, rail corridors, we're in it. So the idea is, again, from my opinion, is this is where you put your density, you put your intensity, you put your height, and you put it in the areas where it's going to be served by your streetcar, which is right out in front, and it's going to be served by light rail, which is just right down the street. And it's right across the street from the university, which is really cool. So, we're asking with respect to the stipulations, but I don't need to talk about those tonight, really, because tonight is just about sharing our vision with you, and then we come back in 2 weeks and you make a decision on whether you share that vision or you don't, which of course we would respect either way. But that's how we got to where we are today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Wood. Appreciate it. I know I've got a couple of folks here who are scheduled to speak as well, and then I think the council can then get to questions, if you wouldn't mind coming back up in a second. Thank you so much. All right, let me go to comments here. Oh, here they are. All right, so this evening on this item, I right now have 3 comment cards, and of course that means that's where we're going to start, and obviously if other people would like to request to speak, this is a public hearing item. So I'm going to take these once again in the order in which I received them. The first speaker this evening is virtual, and it's David Sokolowski.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
My name is David Sokolowski. I live in Tempe. I'm here to ask the council to vote yes on this project. My view of urban planning is that it's important to place density near transit, preserve open views, create an interesting skyline, and have iconic landmarks. We should try to disperse the intensity of urban heat and create distinct character within our neighborhoods. I don't want downtown Tempe to look like New York. I've been involved with transportation for 7 years, and I would challenge anyone to find a better location for TOD. Wherever the city builds, it's going to be uncomfortable for some. If we have to find another location, that neighborhood will also have neighbors talking about shadows and traffic. Even if we build in Mesa, there will be traffic, because those people will have to commute into Tempe. Students will drive along Apache on their way to ASU. We're in a housing crisis, and we can't call it a crisis and then prioritize something like traffic. As a member of the community working group, we were told the general plan was a living document, and you could amend it. Many on the CWG had concerns that we would need more density for projects to pencil out. That's why it's called a general plan, and it's completely normal and routine for Tempe to change the plan. If you vote no on a project, you have to accept there are serious ramifications of that choice. There is an opportunity cost, and it can have unintended consequences. ASU continues to grow, and students are overflowing into our neighborhoods. Overcrowding is a serious problem in Tempe. If you vote yes on this project, the developer will donate to Home Time for All, and this will set a good example so that more donations can be made. To solve the housing crisis, we need to build student housing to meet the current and future demand. I can't think of a better service than providing education to people all over the world. Think about the students struggling to keep a roof over their head. Many of them are from developing countries, and our city should be proud to host these students in our community. This one project isn't going to solve all of our problems, and we still need to invest in affordable housing. But voting yes for this project will be one step forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. The next speaker I have this evening is Ann Till. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, I'm Ann Till, Tempe resident, and I'm not in support of this project. It was denied by the DRC, and it involves a change to the general plan, and although I understand it's a living document, it was just released, and how did we miss this? Oops. Or did it get presented and it wasn't in line with Tempe's plans? I'm not sure. But anyways, what conditions have changed since the draft, which was very recent? Also, I'm sure there's plenty of documentation from nearby residents that are opposed, so I'm here to support that. Also, there is a need for student housing, but I don't think Tempe has to provide all of it. ASU itself has Novus Innovation Corridor. You would think that they would have big plans for student housing there. So that's all I have to say about it.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, I apologize if I get this incorrect. The next speaker I have is Tomas Gile.
Hello, that's me.
Okay.
My name is Tomas Jolly. I'm a resident of the city of Tempe in the Wilson Art Garden neighborhood. And I'm super excited about this project. I'm excited for all my new neighbors, and I think it would be great for businesses around the area, and also be super convenient to have everyone living next to school. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. The last card I have this evening is from Paul Kent. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hello. I think you have Paul Kent, City of Tempe. And I wanted to just make sure that you guys have all the information that we've submitted previously from a collection from our neighbors. And also, I wanted to make sure that I really like the process that we have in the city and going through the Development Review Commission and their recommendation of a denial in a unanimous form is pretty unique in my experience in the city. So the other thing I would say, because you have all of this, is that this site is not in the TOD, in the Transportation Overlay District. It's also not in the revitalization and redevelopment area on the map in the General Plan 2050. The density designation that the owner developer is looking for is 6 times what the general plan says. It's not 10% more, it's 6 times. which seems excessive. The staff recommendation was 4 times the general plan designation. So it just seems like a huge departure from the plan that we just approved, as people have said. What I would say is that I would like to see a project that is substantially in compliance with the general plan. I would like to see a project that's substantially in compliance with the existing and approved heights along the south side of Apache. If it was something in that neighborhood, that's fine. I like the way the building looks. If this project at this height could find another site, totally for it. Absolutely. This is not the site for it, and that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kent. Appreciate it. Once again, that's all the cards I have this evening. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council on this item? Yes, Mr. Williams, please come forward. State your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. My name is Nolan Williams. I'm a resident of the city of Tempe. I live in the neighborhood Daly Park. Daly Park is less than 1 mile from the proposed site, and I would like to speak in strong, strong favor of both this project and any project which will bring more neighbors into my neighborhood. I think that I can't understand why staff opposes a project that is replacing a gas station with a bus stop and 900 people who are going to get to use the streetcar. I cannot understand why they're using parking as a justification for killing a project when students who live next to a bus stop across the street from campus on a light rail line or on a streetcar line are going to be the people in the city who use the least amount of driving on their day-to-day regular basis of anyone in the entire city. It is crazy to me that this is opposed. Having been a member of the general plan community working group, as some of the other speakers today have been, one, yes, we were told that it was a living document, and we were told that the last general plan was amended, I think they said over 200 times in the time, and we were told it won't be a completely final plan, it is a living document. But we also had to live through a bunch of meetings of people who came out because they opposed housing, and then a campaign waged against the general plan's election, specifically on the grounds, publicly and frequently, explicitly saying, we don't like this plan because it is bringing more housing to the city. That is what they made the campaign about. They made it publicly. We don't want there to be more housing in the city. We want the city to stay the way it is. They lost in a total landslide win for the city of Tempe and the general plan. And now we're using that as justification to say, well, okay, now that the general plan is passed, we should just wait a year or 2 years before we allow any other amendments, before we allow any new housing that is outside the 10 or 15 small zones that were included in the plan. If we have to do the general plan every 10 years, and then we have to wait another 2 years or another year before we include anything else, that is 10% of all time that we can't build housing in areas that weren't in the very small, very narrowly tailored parts of the general plan. So I am here representing my organization, Tempe Yes in My Backyard, and we only come out and really publicly whip support for projects with 3 very simple criteria. Is there money for affordable housing, which was promised, $1 million were promised for the Affordable Housing Fund in Tempe at the last meeting this happened. 2, is it more homes in the area than there were before by a significant amount? And 3, is it near transit? And this is a slam dunk. This is a phenomenal project, and if you're not going to build it, please, this is honest, this is earnest. I live in Daly Park, put them all in my neighborhood. Build up Tempe, build up Daly Park. I want 950 people in my neighborhood if we can't build this project, because I want them here. I want the people to live where I live, because I want neighbors and I want what it brings. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right, once again, that's all the cards I have this evening. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council? If so, please get my attention on this item. All right, seeing none, I guess we can turn to comments. And once again, just want to note, too, this is only the first hearing on this. The second hearing is actually scheduled and final vote for June 27th. I guess I'll make some comments to start. So the good part about the project, from my perspective, there's people who've talked about the quality of the building and the quality of the building materials and the design. I agree. When I've looked at the building, it's very well designed from my perspective. The building materials are actually top-notch. Landmark is clearly a builder that's built a lot of quality student housing all throughout the country. I know they have a couple of projects in where my alma mater was in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Might have won a national football championship there, but I won't talk about that again. But so, I mean, I know they've definitely done great work throughout the country, and I appreciate what they've done here in trying to bring a project to the city of Tempe that's going to bring a lot more housing. I literally, at this point in time right now, I'm actually wearing socks that are for building more housing, because that's frankly, as people know, that is the cause of one of the reasons why I got into politics in the first place. And sometimes I've gotten criticism for it, for actually wanting to increase housing supply in a very major way, sometimes faster than even a lot of people might want us to. So that's sort of, my predisposition when I look at pretty much any project that comes before me. At the same time, though, when I look at the general plan in this situation that just recently passed, with a 60-40 percentage. So it was a major win, as was talked about, I believe, by a couple of speakers this evening. I was a big supporter and proponent of that plan. When I look at that plan and I think to myself, and I look at this project, the heights that would currently be allowed at this site under the general plan would be roughly somewhere between 4 to 5 stories. The project that's being pushed here is 21 stories. It doesn't at this point have approval from staff. It got a unanimous denial from the DRC. And many times, I watch our DRC meetings on a pretty consistent basis. Sometimes there are unanimous approvals. Many times I see split votes of 4-3 or 5-2. But to see a unanimous denial is actually very surprising, because I rarely see the entire DRC go completely in that direction of moving towards a denial. One of the things, and Ms. Till talked about this early on, and she was actually quoting a Facebook post that I made towards the end of the campaign before the General Plan 2050 vote. And one of the things I said was, it's not to say that we shouldn't ever talk about amending the general plan. I can even see when you get later on, maybe 8-9 years down the road, and a lot of the conditions may have changed. You may have a lot of people here, or frankly, things are just a lot different than they were when the plan was actually passed. But in this situation, we're talking about being more or less 3 months removed from the general plan's passage. And so when I'm presented with a project where the current height that would be allowed would be roughly between 4 and 5 stories, and the project that was presented to the Development Review Commission was 21 stories, that's more than 4 times what would currently be allowed at that site. It's one thing to me if the project was actually somewhat close to that. If we were talking about maybe something equivalent to a rounding error, if someone said, well, hey, we want to go 6 stories here, or perhaps even 7 stories. And I'm not saying that I would approve it necessarily, but at that height, it would actually make it a very different project if you're cutting a project down from 21 stories down to that height. We would have to frankly go back through the entire process again. Staff approvals, Development Review Commission. But from my perspective, that project at that corner, given the 2050 plan that was just approved by our voters in a very big way, is simply too big for the corner. It's not about the building quality, it's not about the building materials, and it's not about the people who actually want to build it, because I believe they're absolutely quality builders that have done great work throughout the entire United States. But the fact of the matter is, I do feel that given that this plan, the 2050 plan, passed just so recently, to amend the plan already, but to amend a plan for a project that's going 4 times more than what the current height would be at that site, is something that I just cannot support at this point in time. From my perspective, as I said, it's not to say, I want to be very clear, that there could not be general plan amendments at some other point in time for other given projects. If something is close to the general plan and someone's coming in looking for just sort of a slight variation on what was already approved by voters, I would absolutely be willing to look at that. If there was a situation where I had a lot of people in the neighborhood and folks in the surrounding area saying, an overwhelming number of people saying, we know that mayor, council, it's a general plan amendment, but this is something that the majority of our community absolutely supports, and so we are asking that you amend the general plan to bring this project to the city of Tempe, that's absolutely something I would very thoughtfully consider. But in this given situation, for me personally, and I know we're not taking any formal votes this evening, and it's very rare that I would offer these kind of extended comments during a first public hearing, but not a second hearing, but I thought in the situation it was absolutely necessary that I do. This, for me personally, is just way too much at that location. And I just can't see how by the time we get to June 27th, how there would be anything that would substantially change enough to frankly change my mind. So at this point, it's just something that I simply can't support. I appreciate appreciate Landmark for wanting to bring this project to the city of Tempe. I appreciate Mr. Wood's presentation to the city council and his perspective on all of this. But at this point in time, I could not, if the vote was taking place today, I could not support this. And I just honestly don't see anything changing substantially prior to the 27th. Councilmember Dorr?
Thanks, Mayor. First off, thanks Landmark. I mean, the project is beautiful. The building is phenomenal. I have to say, when you see the slides and you see your portfolio, my God, I mean, you guys do some great work out there, and the sense of what you're providing. And I love the question. ASU should help out with student housing as they grow. The thing is, ASU is growing. They have more land to grow, and we do not know what the future has for us. And when I got on this council, it was, what can we do to get students out of the neighborhoods? How can we get students next to ASU? And truly, this is a project that would help do this. This is a project that would help free up housing for families. This is a project that, and it was said logically, and even though it's not in our general plan or the TOD, it's a smart location where it's at. I think this thing, from what I'm hearing from the council, catty-corner across the street probably would fly. On this side of the street, it's just one of those things of perception. When this council started, and I was probably, when I got on this council, first one to say character areas. In fact, I was up in the office today looking at 2009 files of character areas. And I asked staff to design some stuff. What does that look like? You know, how do character areas look? I said the downtown, you know, in my opinion, was the railroad track to the north, river bottom, you know, kind of that area we're seeing today. That's your density. That's where we have to start to plan for and look at things to make things move. And that's the character of the downtown area. But there's a blend. We said also there's a blend with neighborhoods. We said by the railroad tracks, everything will start to tear down. Things will start to kind of blend into the neighborhood. And this is where the toughness comes with a project like this. You know, how does this on this side, and yes, it's on that other side of the street. And yes, it does provide, you know, great housing. I mean, God, I've never been to a college my year in 1986 that had a housing like this with big jumbo TV screens and pool parties. Phenomenal. I mean, what a great college experience. But at the end of the day, we also have to be able to manage this. And I think the mayor said it, even though this deal has gone on before the 2050 plan and the election, it's still the perception of what we're trying to provide our neighbors and the perception of what this looks like right now. I would say that if the builder could take that Serrano's Voodoo Donuts, I'm saying, am I right? Yeah, because I eat there all the time. Sombreros thing. Thanks, Sombreros. God, I can't get this right. I'm nervous about this. I'm going to take my burritos away. But I visited a good location. Today I was there too, earlier at 10 o'clock in the morning, getting my burger, #2 special with a Coke and a fry, regular. It's pretty standard. But the thing is, even if they can get that corner and drop it down, you had one slide, I think it was from Florida, University of Florida, 10-story or 8-story project on that corner. I could digest that. I could digest that. And the thing is the perception of what it does and what it looks like. I would love for you, if anything, could work on this project a little bit more. I don't know if there's any time between here and the next one. And I'm saying these things because I might be in the vote, I might not be in the vote at the final day of this whole thing. But I lived, when I first was born in Tempe, a block away on Lebanon Terrace. And to see this project and to see what has transpired from when I was a kid, I lived next to a junkyard car lot. I have a scar, Doreen, right there.
You do. I saw it.
4 years old, got that scar, playing in the junkyard next to my apartment. And to see the transition of what this neighborhood has transpired to be has been phenomenal. So it's a delicate thing. It's a smart thing. The gentleman over there said, what a great location for this to be at with all the things that are going on next to ASU. It is. It's a slam dunk. I ask you to see if we can make that thing drop a little bit lower and figure it out. I wish we can. I think that's a logical ask. I think sometimes on these tougher projects, we've come out with even a beautiful project, a better project than we thought we would come out with. Give that some consideration. I know this is a tough night. It's a tough night for me. I'm a height guy. I enjoy it, but I also try to make sure that we listen to our residents as best we can. Sometimes it's not what the residents want and what maybe I want or some of the council members want, but I think at the end of the day, we find a solution that's best for everybody.
Thank you so much. Vice Mayor Adams?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple things. Thanks to Landmarks for your presentation and to Nick Wood for his presentation. It was excellent. I mean, this project has a lot of quality products involved with it, and just a real classy product, and project which I appreciate. Easy for me to say tonight. I would like to see it lower because of the neighborhood concerns. Neighborhoods mean a lot to me, and I really try to listen to what the neighborhood want, because they're experts in their own area. And we have a very diverse city. We have all different kinds of neighborhoods, and so we have to respect our neighborhoods. But I mean, I really like this project, and I wish that anything you could do to drop it lower and still make it happen, I would be supportive of. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Garland.
Yeah, when we had a discussion about this project before with Landmark and with Mr. Wood, I did say that I think the project is beautiful. I think it's really cool how you wrap apartments around a parking garage. I thought that was so incredibly smart. But I also said at that time that, we've been working on the general plan for 2 years. There have been so many changes made to the general plan. Heartburn, headaches, and happiness all involved in putting this plan together, listening to our residents and working back with staff. And we just voted on this. And I know that Mr. Wood said that they started doing this in September, but we have been working on this plan since September. And I find it hard to believe that there wasn't an idea that maybe we should kind of take a glance at what the 2050 plan is looking like to see if our project is going to fit into that, so we don't have to immediately ask for an amendment to the general plan that, as our mayor said, was voted on by 60-40, passed by our residents. I feel like instantly coming in here when you knew we were doing a general plan amendment, it just feels like kind of a slap in the face to our residents right at this moment. And I like the building. I want more housing in our city. I think we all do. I think we understand how important that is. But I also think it's important that we take a step back and listen to the residents that voted on the 2040 plan, the 2050 plan, that had asked not for that specific area, not to have that height, when we had the opportunity to be able to talk about that. I appreciate what Mrs. Till said, because as she was speaking, I felt like she was kind of saying words that I have said before. I completely agree with you that ASU needs to start building on their own property for their own students. I have said this before. I'm going to stand on the soapbox and yell it, because I think that's really important. The city of Tempe should not be using the small parts of lands that we have to build student housing. I would love to see residential come in. I want to start seeing not just apartments coming in. I want to see home ownership coming into our city, small apartments or small condos. I think that's really important to us. But I cannot see that with the changes and the discussion that was had at the DRC, and they were asking if this project could get down to 15 stories, even that, it was said, no, we couldn't do that. I can't see putting a height in here that is not part of what we already have written in the general plan without doing a general plan amendment. I cannot imagine if it can be changed by the next time we meet that, but right now, looking at this, and have I said to you guys, trying to be really respectful about it, I cannot support this.
Thank you. Councilmember Chin?
Thank you, Mayor. This is difficult for us. In this process, I've learned more about the builder And they do great work. I think they have some nice projects around the country. And I would love for them to find a location in Tempe. I agree with the mayor's comments. You know, we need housing in Tempe. And but it has to be the right project for the right site. And I think this site, unfortunately, this project is too big for that site. We have to find something appropriately scalable for that area. And when necessary, there may need to be an amendment. But unfortunately for this one, I am not comfortable supporting it right now.
Thank you very much. Anyone else, anyone on the phone this evening who wants to weigh in on this project?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Keating.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I just want to thank the applicant for coming forward. It was an informative presentation. As Councilmember Navarro said, it's a great looking building, and your portfolio throughout the country looks amazing. I love the amenities, as Councilmember Garland talked about, wrapping, parking garage in units. I think it is a very smart thing to do. It doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of support to pass this tonight, but I do hope that you continue to work with the surrounding neighbors, with staff, to try to come up with something that will have the support to pass the city council, because I do think that, as Mr. Williams pointed out and Mr. Sokolowski mentioned, and others have mentioned this too, we are in a housing crisis, and it is on this body to take that as seriously as we can, and I know that we do, but we also can't just put the onus on ASU, because I would like to remind everybody that ASU students live in Tempe. They are Tempeans. They are residents. They share our city with us. They're not other than Tempe. They are part of Tempe. It was only 20 years ago, I was an ASU student living on campus in Tempe, and I moved off campus to an apartment in Tempe, and I paid $900 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment within walking distance to my classes. So a lot's changed, obviously. And I know that we're doing everything we can to alleviate the pressure on the housing market. So it is my firm hope that we get to a point with all involved, the neighbors, staff, DRC, this council, to come up with something that adds additional housing units to that corner. That is a very important corner in our city. The light rail is right there. It is across the street from campus. Right, sitting empty is not benefiting anyone in the city, frankly, from a tax standpoint, from a housing standpoint, from an activation standpoint too. We can't have abandoned corners in the city, because that invites a host of other problems. So I would ask you to continue to work to try to find a more palatable solution, because we definitely want to be in business with you, and we appreciate that you are so willing to work with us, and I appreciate that you want to be in Tempe, because Tempe is a business friendly community, and we pride ourselves on that. And I'm willing to work with you as far as we can to make sure that we get something there really as soon as possible, because I do think it is an imperative. So I appreciate your time tonight. Doesn't sound like we're going to get there, but I know that I'm Nick. We've worked together for a while. I know that you will do what you need to do to make sure that this council eventually does have a project that we can support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Keating. Councilmember Hodge?
Yes, thank you. Well, I think everything has probably been said by every one of my colleagues tonight about how I feel. It is not cut and dry. We do have a housing crisis. I am one of the ones who yell at the top of my lungs on how much we need affordable housing, how much we need housing, but I also know that I listen to my community also, and I listen to my neighbors. So it's a balancing act. And right now, I have always, and people can say I voted. I'm very much indeed about making sure we have housing, making sure we do development. But also, I have to say, I don't feel as comfortable with this because the fact that our staff hasn't came to a conclusion. I've never had a time when the staff has said absolutely no on this. You know, they're not there with the height where it's at that point. And with Mr. Kent himself, you know, he's been very supportive of development. He wants more. We talk about that over and over again. He has kids. He wants more development. But just to hear our neighbors say the same thing, I'm not there until we can come to a point that our neighbors and the city and everybody's included. I don't want, I'm like Councilmember Keaton. I know we need something there, but I don't think at the height that you're proposing, we're going to get there as a council. So if some way we can work to bring a compromise to that, I'm all willing to hear it. But at this point, I am not there yet. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, anyone else from council, any further comments? Okay, no. Mr. Wood, anything else before we, I know, okay, sounds good. Thank you, okay. So just want to let folks know here that once again, the final vote's not being actually taken this evening, but the second and final public hearing where the vote will be taken is going to be on June 27th, 2024. Which brings me to the next item under this section, which is item 8B3, which is to introduce and hold the first public hearing to adopt an ordinance for a zoning map amendment from R3 and R4 to MU4 mixed-use high density, a planned area development overlay to establish development standards, and a development plan review for a new 5-story mixed-use development consisting of 910 dwelling units. And, I mean, seriously, and commercial uses on 17.22 acres for Tempe Gateway, located at 2180 North Scottsdale Road. The applicant is Barry Riddell, LLC, and I see Wendy Riddell coming up. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Wendy Riddell with the law firm Barry Riddell, 6750 East Camelback. My pleasure to be here this evening on behalf of Tempe Gateway. I'm going to endeavor to be a little bit briefer, perhaps, than my colleague. My client here tonight is Coleridge. They have owned and maintained this site since 2012. They are no stranger here to the valley. In fact, they have 11 properties throughout the valley, and they've got a very good track record of reinvesting in those properties and redeveloping those properties. You can see the site here at Camelback and 78th Street from 2014 to 2020, just up the road. The site we're here discussing today was actually built back in 1970s. You can see the aerial here that is actually from 1979. It is indeed a site that is ripe for reinvestment. Our request tonight is to rezone it from R3 and R4 to MU4 and bring in a PAD overlay, development plan review. We are redeveloping this site with nearly double the density of market rate units. And I can tell you that we began this project by sitting down and meeting with the North Tempe neighbors. And we're very grateful for the input that they've given us throughout this entire project. You'll hear from them, of course, tonight. There has, as I know this council is keenly aware, been quite a bit of misinformation that's been circulated about this project. So I do want to set the record straight, and I'm grateful after the dialogue that I just listened to that we do not need a general plan amendment. We are not seeking a general plan amendment. We are entirely in conformance with your recently adopted general plan. I can also tell you that we are not kicking old people out of their homes. In fact, this developer is handling this project, I think, as responsibly as you possibly could. Construction on this site won't actually begin until 2028. And then there's 3 phases of this project, which I'll show you. And then there's 3 years between each of those phases. I can tell you that we also sat down and noticed tenants about this project back in November of 2023. And any tenant that was there that was a tenant in good standing prior to that date will be included in our relocation plan that I'll tell you a little more about here as well. We are providing a minimum of 1 year notice to residents when we actually start construction, again, the soonest of which would be 2028. And that relocation plan was shared, has been shared with the tenants, of course. So a point I perhaps can't emphasize too much tonight, that we are entirely in conformance with your 2050 general plan, the land use density map, as well as many of the policies within that plan. Oh, sorry. I've never been accused of being too quiet. The details, this is 3 phases over a 17-acre site. We are seeking 5 stories, a maximum height of 75 feet. We're proposing 910 residential units, and we have commercial space, roughly 24,000 square feet along Scottsdale Road. So the height that we show you, we really have worked to very sensitively integrate it to the surrounding residential. You can see where we have a mix of 5, 4, 3, and 2 stories and how that tapers. I will share with you a recent change here. You can see the one portion up along McKellips that we will be working with staff to memorialize this, would like to seek to further lower that height on McKellips in response to some comments from one of the neighbors across the street, dropping it from that 5 to 4 stories. You can see when you go to the north side of the project that the height again transitions to residential from Papago Drive north of the site, what that sight line looks like and how we have made sure that it tapers appropriately. This shows from the south side of the projects, when you're headed east on McKellips, you can see that 100-foot of right-of-way on McKellips, what this project will look like. And then we also took a view from a neighbor that perhaps you'll hear from this evening as well, that lives on the south side of McKellips, looking directly north of the project and what that would look like. And you can see, I think you see it as a pretty reasonable condition with the width there of McKellips Road, the landscaping that we're proposing, and then how, again, we have tapered that building. So phasing, there's quite a bit of discussion about this at the DRC. We are phasing the development of this site, again, to do it very responsibly for the community, allowing us to take people that are in phase 1 to relocate them to phase 2 or 3 or to another project we have just up the road. As I mentioned, the timeline here is we notified the tenants back in November of 2023. We're, of course, here for the zoning approval. But then you'll see that we're taking quite a bit of additional time as we work through construction documents, building permits, utilities, until we ultimately would start construction in 2028. This is consistent. We work with staff on stipulations. And then lease up 2029 and then start into the second phase, and then ultimately the same process to the third phase. And then you can see how those phases actually look when you plug them into an aerial and how they work and how they integrate, that the existing projects in 2 and 3 that are out there today can be effectively lived in and can be well maintained and work very synergistically with the project that we're proposing. So this is phase 1. You see it as it rolls in ultimately to phase 2. And then finally into phase 3. Again, over time, allowing the community to be relocated here as we go. You'll also see, I know that sometimes this council has been interested to understand what garages would look like. So when we have phase 1 of the garage, this of course is internal to the existing multifamily, but we have designed metal screens that will go up and will be on the end of that garage until phase 2 is built. And then of course, phase 3 entirely wraps the garage with residential. So the relocation plan, I wanted to share with this council what we are doing. Again, we've given tenants notice back in November of 2023. Any residents in place in good standing prior to that date are covered by this relocation plan. We have a point of contact that we have referred people to. And what we will do is we've agreed to, in writing, let them know 1 year prior to the start of construction. Everybody here, I should tell you, is on a 1-year lease. We are assisting them with relocating to either a future phase on the project, phase 2 or phase 3, or to a property that we have just up the road, Chazelle at Roosevelt and Miller. We're also assisting them with moving logistics, including scheduling, moving company recommendations. We've got negotiated discounts and on-site coordination the day of the moving. And we're offering a moving voucher of $500 for everyone who is eligible under this plan. So trying to do this as responsibly as possible. Some of the images of what this will look like. This is looking at the corner of Scottsdale Road and McKellips. You can see the retail that we expect to have there, restaurants, shops. When you come a little bit further down McKellips Road, it gives you an idea of how that height comes up and down, that movement that you see. And then this is phase one. Ultimately, you see the shadow, kind of how phase two would connect there. You see what those metal screens would look like at the end of the garage. Phases 1 and 2, again, you see those metal screens here on the end of this garage. And then ultimately with phase 3. You'll see that we've got a landscape plan, very lushly landscaped site overall. We also, and I wanted to make sure the neighbors saw this, have updated the entry with landscaping on McKellips with some palm trees, and that shows you what that will look like here as well. This is a market rate project. It has the type of amenities you would expect to see on a market rate project, everything from barbecues and bike parking, swimming pools, shade structures, clubs, business center, fitness center, sports courts. It does also have a dog park. Of course, a dog park. Happy dog. Dog park for our residents. There was also discussion at DRC wanting to ensure, and so I'm demonstrating how the project is indeed walkable, not only through the first phase, the green lines entering, showing how it's walkable, but through phase 2, and of course, ultimately through phase 3. You will be able to live in phase 3, walk entirely through the project, and get to that commercial out on Scottsdale Road. Same thing is true as cyclability. We know Tempeans like their bicycles, so we've made sure how we are accommodating those, how it can connect into the network. There was also some discussion at the last DRC about on-site trees, and we committed to going and taking a look into the trees on-site and determining what could be salvaged. It was not great news from our arborist. The trees are really not salvageable, really due to the age and the health, the type of species, or not within the ADWR Phoenix AMA plant lists, or they have excessive roots. Nonetheless, we are committed to, as we take those trees out, to have them available for anyone in the neighborhood that for a period of 30 days wants to come and take those trees and believes that they can make them salvageable. We want to work with the community, and we'll be doing that to anyone who is interested. I have also wanted to bring to your attention some of the ways that we are complying with your altogether voluntary green building code. The project does address several of the principles that are within there. Connectivity, of course, how we're using the walkways that I've just demonstrated, the connectivity to bicycles that I've demonstrated. We are providing a lot more bike parking than is required, as well as providing 2% of parking spaces to allow EV equipment and 10% of the spaces of EV capable and 25% EV ready. So compliance with several elements of your green building code. And then finally, as I mentioned, we began this project with the North Tempe Neighborhood Associations, meeting with Cavalier, with door-to-door outreach. We're very grateful for all of the support and help that they have brought us throughout this case. We, of course, are continuing to have ongoing discussions. We are also fortunate to have 77 letters of support that are in your packet from North Tempe residents. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Ms. Riddell. Appreciate the presentation. I know Vice Mayor has a comment, and then I need to open up the public testimony portion. Oh, yeah, we can do that first. Yeah, absolutely. You got it. Okay, sounds good. Let me then go ahead and open the public testimony portion, then we can bring you back up right afterwards.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to bring these out here. Just also a really quick couple of things I need to read into the record. There have been a couple of changes made here. So there's following change has been made to the zoning map, the zoning amendment and planned area development condition number 1, which states that a building permit application shall be made within 3 years of the date of city council approval, or the zoning of the property may revert to that in place at the time of the application. And also wanted to note for development plan review condition number 2 has also been amended, which states that phases 1, 2, and 3 shall be constructed simultaneously or consecutively with an application for building permits for each phase within 3 years of the prior phase receiving final certificate of occupancy. And I just want to make sure that those revisions are going to be to the ordinance are going to be for inclusion in the June 27th, 2024 City Council packet. So I want to make sure that's noted for the record for those in the audience and those watching at home as well. So with that said, I'm going to open the public testimony portion, and I will once again call these in the order in which I received them. The first person, I only have a have a first name but not a last name, and I believe it's either Jackie or Jacques, and they're virtual. Okay.
Oops, sorry about that. Can you hear me?
No problem. We can hear you. Please state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Sure. My name is Jackie Colgrove, and I'm a resident of North Tempe. I am in opposition of the project. I spoke at the DRC as well for not necessarily reasons of just the physical building, but some of the concerns I even brought up to them is being a North Tempe resident, we really don't have a lot of infrastructure. The only place that those of us who live in the north part of Tempe can grocery shop is Scottsdale. We have one grocery store probably within a 4 to 5 mile square radius. And there isn't any other type of like say a drugstore or shopping other than, or not Arizona Mills, excuse me, Tempe Marketplace. And the majority of those are utilized by ASU students. And one of the DRC members happened to say in response to that, that until we get more people in the community or a larger population, that those grocery stores aren't going to come. But somebody who's lived here 40 years, I asked you, where are they going to build them? There's nothing left. We're landlocked, and we're just adding more people to an area that's already supported by another city. I mean, the amount of times that I go north of McKellar, or excuse me, south of McKellar for any of my needs is next to none. You have to compete with the traffic. I have to compete with ASU students. And the idea of putting 990 units on that corner, when just the other day we had a motorcycle accident, they had to reroute traffic, and it was 45 minutes of not being able to leave our existing community. So you add 990 units to that corner, or excuse me, another 450. I can only imagine what that's going to be like. The other thing is, being a resident in this area is the idea of having to put up with 10 years of construction. You know, you get the first one built for 3 years, then you have 2 phases that are existing people that are going to have to hear that construction and live there. Not only that, we are less than a mile away from this build, and there was no one that reached out to our community about this. So there was no, you know, ability at that point to put any input for us. Yes, it doesn't directly affect us in the sense of that they're our next door neighbor, but it does affect our surrounding community. The amount of people being displaced, I know in the slide presentation, they're saying that no one is going to be displaced. And one of the big concerns that came up was affordable housing. And I think the idea that keeps coming up is that affordable housing has to be some type of subsidized housing by the government. And this particular community is actually, I would say, more on the affordable side. When you have rents that are somewhere around $1,000 and you have the rents that are going to be, you know, 2 times what they are now, and you say, okay, well, these folks can go ahead and move into the first phase or stay here, or we'll relocate them. The properties that they own that they're trying to relocate them to, if you view them, have less than 5% vacancy.
I'm sorry, that's time. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. No, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the next speaker I have this evening is Christian Wimmer, who's also virtual. Okay. Christian, can you hear me? Hi, Christian, can you hear me?
Yes, can you
Yes,
hear me
hi.
okay?
Yes, can you state your
Okay.
name and place of residence? You have 3 minutes.
Yes, absolutely. Hello, Mayor and Council members. My name is Christian Wimmer. I've been a resident of Tempe for 44 years. I have several concerns regarding the plans for the Tempe Gateway project. While I understand that growth is essential for the right reasons, I am unsure of how this new project will benefit the community, despite previous meetings where Tempe residents have voiced their concerns for more affordable housing. High-cost apartments continue to be developed. I've witnessed firsthand the negative impact of these high-cost apartments on our community. There's very little affordable living anywhere in Tempe, and I am unsure how this project will address that issue. The Scottsdale Gateway serves a purpose. The people who currently reside in that complex are not the problem with the crime that happens in North Tempe. And if this project is approved, I'm just concerned that all we are going to see is the homeless that's there now in front of a high-rise, expensive apartment complex. North Tempe is landlocked and we have no grocery stores. I'm just really concerned about that as well. I'm also worried that much like the apartments on the southeast corner of Apache and McClintock, there will be insufficient parking for these retail shops leading into vacant storefronts. Please consider the impact on the people who will be displaced by this project. Thank you for your attention to these concerns.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. The next speaker I have this evening is Deborah Zajac. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Deborah Zajac. I'm a 30-year resident, and I always say North Tempe. So anyway, I oppose this project and want to address the following 4 points: affordability and homelessness, amenities and city investment in streetscape, completion timeline, and contribution to the Hometown for All project. Affordability and homelessness. Rents in these more mature complexes are more reasonably priced than in the newer developments. Demolishing this complex will displace hundreds of people who will not be able to afford the increase in rents in the new project. How does this reflect on the city taking action to address the issue of affordability and homelessness? Number 2, amenities and city investment in streetscape. Supporters of the project are saying that the increased density that this project will create, more than doubling it, will attract better amenities for local residents. Maybe so, but there is another way which has been implemented by Scottsdale and Mesa. Tempe would be wise to consider it. Have the city invest in improvements in the streetscape from 202 North to Continental. Driving north on Scottsdale Road into Scottsdale from Tempe, there is a noticeable difference. Scottsdale has public art, pavement that is not only functional, but are aesthetically pleasing, and attractive street signs. A big difference from the crumbling medians and tired intersections that we have in North Tempe. Or Mesa's improvements along Southern from the canal to Alma School. Boy, can you notice the difference going east from Tempe into Mesa. These improvements in the streetscape have attracted new businesses and development, even as the mall has died. Which came first, chicken or the egg? Let's try something different. You hear a lot about curb appeal in residential real estate, but maybe it could apply to Tempe. Tempe wants to spend money on upgrading Mill Avenue, extending the streetcar, giving raises to high-level management, bumping up pension commitments for decades. But improving Scottsdale Road in North Tempe has not been addressed. This could satisfy the residents who are looking for better amenities and improve Tempe's image. 3 phases and 10-year completion time. Who knows what the economic conditions will be in 10 years and the disruption it will cause for nearby residents for a decade. This issue was brought up in the DRC with the passage of 4 to 3, not acceptable. Contribution to Hometown for All. It was stated that support for affordable housing will come from the developer's voluntary contribution to Hometown for All, but the amount was not mentioned. I would question what this would be, and will it also come in phases? I do hope the city staff closely monitors these financial commitments, because as we saw this last year, they can slip through the cracks and not be paid in a timely manner.
Thank you so much. The next speaker I have is Tim Palmer. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, good evening, Council. My name is Tim Palmer. I'll say it again. I'm a 60-year resident in Tempe, and I have grave concerns about this project. I actually walked this project this week and felt like I needed to understand what I was seeing and what was being talked about. And so what I want to say first and foremost is I really feel like the council or the property is a lovely place to live. It's extremely well landscaped, has very mature, lush landscaping, and I think that, some of the questions that are being raised about, the displacement of the residents there is a true concern for that. And there's a lot of questions that are, that haven't been answered and might not ever be answered anytime soon. But what concerns me most of all you talk about tonight, green construction methods. The sustainability that this project is going to present is going to be really bad for the environment. If you can imagine the demolition of this property into the landfills, this is going to be horrendous. The air quality during construction is going to be very, very bad. And so I really question, what is the true essence of the need for this project to change? What is the true essence that this needs to be torn down and affordable housing, as it's being discussed, being eliminated? So I really, hope that the council is going to really consider that you are now, again, have a moral compass project in front of you. And I hope you take this seriously, because a lot of residents in Tempe take this extremely serious. And when I say that I'm in favor of development in Tempe, I'm in favor of really strong commercial development, but this is housing development. And more times than not, the city of Tempe makes mistakes when it comes to housing, or at least the perception that housing is not taken seriously on some levels. This is not a good project for the city to not take seriously. I hope you have the moral compass to consider everything on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next speaker I have is Janice Bedone. If I got that correct, please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
It's Jan Bedore, by the way.
Sorry
Close,
about that.
but, and I'm a resident of Tempe. My husband and I bought our home in 1985 and have lived on McAllister. We're on the west side. So this would be our front yard, basically. Probably our bigger worries, we love the quiet neighborhood. We love knowing our neighbors and being able to walk to different things and the things that are around us, and that's part of why we bought there. We are worried about the air quality, the noise, our privacy. I'm worried that we'll be observed from a 5-story building. It just seems like a monstrosity to me, that it just doesn't, I don't think it's a bad project at all. It's designed well. I just don't think it belongs on that corner. I know a lot of people in that neighborhood, everybody greets each other, just like the gentleman said earlier, say hello to people, things like that. I just don't feel like that's going to happen once this goes in. I worry about the parking, because already we have spill it over onto our streets from who's there right now, different times a year. I worry about that maybe an increase in people is going to also increase the need for police, firemen, fire stations, things like that. I just think that's not an area that's really going to have the ability to build up what we need to for that kind of, I wonder what happens if in the middle, 10 years is forever. I just think that's a long time to have our street torn up and construction and filth. But say something happens along the phases and something doesn't go through, then that's another 2 or 3 years of, I just see it being like a domino effect of things that, plus it's going to block the sunrise, and that's very personal. I watch the sunrise every morning. 5 stories is going to kill that. So I just do not think that that belongs in that area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. The next speaker I have this evening is Darlene Justice. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Darlene Justice. I live in North Tempe. I've lived in North Tempe since 1965. I've raised 3 children there, 8 grandchildren. I have 5 great-grandchildren. I have worked really hard in this community. I have seen things along Scottsdale Road. When we first moved there, it was a lot different than it is now, with this different stores, grocery, and everything. This corner, these apartments have been called Scottsdale Gateway. Tempe has 2 main names on this road. It's Scottsdale, north of the lake, and it's rural, south of the lake. We are part of Tempe. We have affordable housing in Tempe, in North Tempe. They're saying that this building has to stay affordable housing. We want Scottsdale Road to change. We want some of the environment to change. We need a grocery store. We need a pharmacy. We need different things. We have to have more people. We have to have people that can do this. We need rooms also for affordable housing. All of Tempe needs room for affordable housing. There are people here tonight that don't live in North Tempe, and they're trying to determine the future of our area. We need this development. We need the folks that are coming here. It's right on public transportation. People said, oh, that they're not going to walk down Scottsdale Road in front of these businesses. That's not true. We have a very mobile. In our neighborhoods right now, our home was built in the early 60s. We have people that are aging out. A lot of neighbors have passed away. I'm going to be 80 this year. But what's happening is our homes are not deteriorating. They are coming in and they are completely upgrading and that, putting new appliances. And we've actually, my husband and I have been fortunate to do some of that. But the community is thriving. We have affordable housing. We have duplexes, quadplexes. We have a county island that's been a big stigma for a long time. We finally have things happening with, we will have the 650 homes along Miller that'll be opening. This development will help our community. We please ask you to think about the people who have lived here, and we've worked hard for this community. Thank you for Papago Park Preserve. Thank you for a lot of things. Thank you for your concern over the homelessness. But we really need this development. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker I have is Kim Gaffney. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you. My name is Kim Gaffney Loza. I'm a resident of North Tempe for the last 18 years now, and I've been very active in it along with Darlene Justice. I think I really like this developer, and one of the reasons I really like them is the amount that they've been engaged with us, and also because they've owned that property for a while, so they've been in the neighborhood. They know what the needs are of the neighborhood. This project stays with the 2050 plan. We need more density along Scottsdale Road. We need to change the culture along Scottsdale Road. Right now, when you first come off the 202, we look like a stop on the interstate with gas stations and fast food and not a lot of new development. It looks old and dated. This complex is looking old and dated. It is not very sustainable. I know the landscape is lush, but it's not very sustainable. The pine trees have been dropping like flies these past couple of years with the heat. And they've got a lot of very old pine trees in this area. There's a development that went in, or not went in, but an older development that had a lot of grass landscape along McKellips Road, just a little further west. They just took half their grass and changed it over to xeriscape to save water. The landscaping for this project is desert adapted. They're using a lot of great material for that. They also were very responsive when they had their public meeting. One of the things I asked for, because they didn't have it at that time, was a line of sight for the surrounding neighbors, because I know how important that's been in other development in our neighborhood. They complied, they had it by the DRC, and went to a lot of the neighbors in the area and showed them the line of sight so that they would feel comfortable with what the view was going to be. So I am very much in favor of this. I think we really need it. I'm all for affordable housing, but I don't think affordable housing should be old buildings that don't fit the current look, that look older. And it's not the same as a historic building might be, like Watson's Flower Shop. I totally support the Historic Preservation Foundation on that one. But this is a good project to update our area, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Georgia Kohler. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi, good evening. I'm Georgia Kohler. I am a longtime resident of Tempe as well. I moved here to go to ASU, graduated in the early 80s, so I do have some longevity. Chose to stay in the city of Tempe because I love the livability of the city, the diverse population that we have here. Raised 2 kids that went to ASU and graduated from ASU. No junkyard scars though. And but they do have both very successful careers after graduating. I've participated in the Tempe Sister Cities program and just really enjoyed living in Tempe. I am in support of this project. I kind of want to say ditto to what the previous 2 speakers said, because they do hit a lot of the points I have. In the time I've lived in North Tempe, though, I have seen a decline in the area, and yet there's so much to offer in that area, too. So I have lived in 4 different locations in North Tempe, including my current residence of nearly 29 years. Lived in the apartment complex in question that's asking for zoning changes in 2 different apartments in that particular complex when I was in college. So I have seen some changes in that complex as well over the years. My home's backyard is within sight of the multi-use development that we're talking about that's being proposed there. Even with that in mind, I do support the rezoning of this to the MU4. This is really redeveloping a really, I think, well-loved but tired apartment complex property. And it needs to be upgraded with modern amenities, which I think will also be helpful to the community with the retail space. And so I do support that, and I'm glad they are putting that in that project. Developing the property noted, I think it will only potentially increase our property values in that area. Will attract and expand the reach of more retail in the North Tempe area, which has become sorely lacking. With the property development for the multi-use high density that they're talking about, I see that the tax base for the city will change and increase and be a positive influence. And to me, just having that is going to be a win-win solution for both the city and the residents of North Tempe. And those are the ones that really have the most to gain or lose from the approval of this zoning change. Now, I will say there are several concessions I want to consider with this project. And again, in support, but just some considerations. One is that the buildings on McKellips that are west of Cavalier would be limited to 4 stories versus 5, which I do believe Ms. Riddell spoke to. And I had not seen her presentation, so I wasn't aware of that. Landscaping that would be planted that she spoke about. And then also just landscape allowances for any individual private properties negatively impacted by the line of sight of this development. There are some houses that you can see in the pictures that are right across the street. And so with that, I would just like to say I'm supportive of this. I want to see revitalization of the North Tempe area.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. The next speaker I have this evening is Ann Till. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Careful. Hi, my name's Ann Till, Tempe resident, and I don't have an opinion on whether to support or oppose the project. But I also wanted to thank you for your perspectives on that previous project. That was really useful to hear on the general plan considerations and differences. So thanks for that. And a lot of the comments have been really good tonight on this project. A lot of issues to be resolved. Construction seems like a definite. I can see that concern, and traffic is pretty heavy there, so the city needs to look at that for solutions. But the biggest concern, I think, well, before I say that one, I guess as far as the grocery thing, can there somehow be a guarantee that, I think this was mixed use, right? So can the developer line up a grocery store, one that's reasonably priced to support that area as part of the mixed use project on the lower level? Because a lot of these the units like on Apache are empty and they've been there 10 years or 8 or 10 years. So I always find that problematic when I drive by that that's not being taken advantage of. So, but as far as the big issue is displacement, I think, and I don't think I saw anything about existing versus new rents. And, you know, I think that the rents are higher is market rate because I think these were HUD rates. I'm not sure. Do existing residents actually qualify financially when the new property is built? Because I think there's usually financial qualifications, and if the rental rates go up, then they, you know, even though they're accommodating moving into the new units and gradually building, you know, people may not be able to afford that or the units down the street that they're proposing. And then to look at how many elderly, you know, are in that area. They should get extra help moving because elderly residents can have trouble mentally and physically moving. You know, I helped my parents move. They could not move anymore without my help. And some people are all alone in Tempe now without relatives. And they're also losing their community, which is really important to an older person. So I think it'd be good to specifically look at this in some of these housing projects where there's some displacement. Thanks.
Thank you. The next speaker I have is Philip Yates. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. For the record, my name is Philip Yates, and I'm the president for the Riverside Neighborhood Association. Earlier today, I watched a video on social media of a woman, elderly woman, and she lives at this complex. And it's a very nice complex. It's very well designed and taken care of. And she was scared. The last thing I like to see or have ever heard of in the city of Tempe are people that are going to be displaced by just the growth of the city of Tempe, and she spends less than $1,000 per month where she lives. She is not going to know where to go in the city of Tempe if she were to be displaced by this project. And that really, really needs to be taken to heart as you all make your decision as to whether or not to approve this project. One of the things that I hear a lot from candidates that are running is that we really are in a crisis where we need to have more affordable housing. Well, we have affordable housing in some places, and this is one of those places. And we need to think about that. The affordable housing that we do have, we need to keep. And this is one of those places. Last year, as some of you may know, my mother passed away, and she was one of the most prominent advocates of affordable housing. And it really, really disturbed her whenever she would see something like this get torn down in eye of new development. The people that live here and can afford to live here are diminishing, and that is really disturbing. They don't have anywhere to go. They have to look into other cities, and they just can't afford to live here anymore. And we need to help them, because otherwise the city of Tempe is going to wind up with more homeless, and we don't want that either. And with that, I'll close. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. The next speaker I have is Mylan Pinkowitz. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Mylan Penkiewicz. I have emailed all of you about this issue. I am a resident of Scottsdale and a prospective resident of Tempe as I'm looking for a house here in Tempe. I often walk on McDowell Road and I bike on McKellips Road along the site. And I have always, since I moved to the area 12 years ago, admired the beauty and age of the trees on site. But first of all, I want to acknowledge my privilege in owning my own home in the Phoenix metropolitan area, where the average rent has gone up almost 40% since 2019. And Maricopa Association of Government data shows that this census tract in Tempe, where the proposed project would be, people already spend 40 to 45% of their income in rent. Market rate is not affordable housing. Lack of consideration for affordable housing keeps residents trapped in a cycle of poverty, unable to fund other living needs such as healthcare or plan for a future in terms of retirement. I first want to emphasize that I stand in solidarity with the current residents of this complex, given that the target rent prices that are being sought out for this project are completely out of tune with the City of Tempe 2040 housing inventory ratio, which calls for, at a minimum, almost 50% of all housing stock to be affordable, not market rate. Secondly, I want to speak about the trees on the site, which I emailed all of you about extensively. I see time and time again developers just seeing a piece of land and not acknowledging the benefits that the trees have on that land. These trees that are on the site are over 50 years old, and yes, it's true, some pines are dying, and I appreciate our presenter talking more in depth about the trees. And I would say that it's easy to say the trees are not salvageable because at this point, after 50 years old, it's impossible to remove them and salvage them. And I want to emphasize that it's very exhausting for residents like myself to have to come to council every time there are tree canopy issues to defend on a case-by-case basis, because there's currently a loophole where developers don't have to take inventory of trees that are non-native. Yes, these trees are non-native, but they're desert adapted, and they can withstand the summers that we're having that are increasingly hotter a lot better than new trees that tend to break away and currently are taking just as much water to keep them alive and are not providing the same shade benefits. I urge you to consider this from the perspective of the residents that are living here and from the perspective of all of us who enjoy the cooling benefits of the trees on the site. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker I have this evening is Ken Jacobson. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Ken Jacobson. I've lived in this complex for 21 years. When I graduated from ASU in 1982, I lived here again in the late 1980s. I lived in Minneapolis for 13 years after that. I missed the place. I moved back because I liked it. I found very few places that I like as much as this apartment complex. People are complaining that this is somehow dated. I don't see that at all. Everything was renovated in this place 13 years ago, inside and out. It was completely renovated. Every time someone moves out now, they're renovating the kitchens and bathrooms again. Everything's in really good shape in this place. The pools, to talk about amenities, there's 3 pools in this place. 2 of them are half Olympic pools. I can't find half Olympic pools anywhere else that are this nice around the area. I like living in this area a lot. The big issue with me is I voted for the Tempe Tomorrow plan. And one of the reasons I voted for it is because it says things like, what is it, page 100? Tempe is dedicated to preserving existing affordable housing in the community. The cool thing about this apartment complex is almost half the apartments are really small, tiny apartments that are affordable, $1,000 to $1,200. The apartment I live in is an average size 1-bedroom. I pay $1,450. That's about the average price for a 1-bedroom apartment. The 2-bedroom apartments are the average price for 2-bedroom apartments. It's just that this apartment complex has a whole lot of really small apartments, and I really like that. I meet a lot of really interesting people at this place, these apartments. The woman that lives across from me is Alinda, who's moved here from Louisiana. She's in her 80s. She's really upset about moving away and doesn't want to. The people who live in those small apartments, a lot of those people are minimum wage workers. They're putting half of their income just to pay for these little places. It's not easy for them. everyone I've talked to, the Coleridge says that they had a meeting about this in November. 5 people showed up to that meeting. We were all emailed about that meeting. I didn't go because I wasn't interested in hearing about an exciting new plan to tear my apartments down and build something else. I also didn't believe, when I saw the sign outside, it said that Tempe was looking at changing the zoning from 25 dwelling units per acre to 65. And I told people, we talked about this, I can't imagine the city would do that because there's nothing like that in this whole area. These are all like 2-story apartments all the way from Weber all the way up to McDowell. This is how it is for a mile around. Why would they put a 5-story thing here? Nothing else is like this in the area. It's completely out in the area. It's completely out of character with the whole area. And it's another thing the Tempe plan says is maintaining neighborhood character. I'm sorry, but this is completely out of character with the place. One thing too, I want to reimburse this. Say again, this is not a bad place at all. I would. Am I out of time already?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know it goes by very quickly. I apologize.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobson. Appreciate it.
Well, I have a petition here.
Oh.
I have 30 signatures. Everybody has
Sure.
to sign.
Sure, you can hand it to the clerk right there, and I'll take a look at it. Thank you.
Yeah. By the way, what the petition says is. Just so you know.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. We can't keep going. I'm sorry. But yeah, she'll make sure that gets around to all of us. So. The next speaker I have, and actually the last card I have, I should say, is from Julie Lynn. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Julie Lind. I live very close to this apartment complex. As a matter of fact, in some of the pictures of the development, you can see my house. So I have lived, my family, my 4 children and 6 grandchildren have lived in that neighborhood for 20 years. I've lived in Tempe for 30 years. And been very active in the care and the needs of the North Tempe neighborhood. And I believe that this development, this improvement will benefit my family. We have, at great cost to our family, tried to improve this neighborhood. We even purchased a home down the street from our residence from a friend who died. And with the help of friends and family and neighbors, we purchased the house and completely renovated it so that it is handicap accessible and likely where my husband and I will die in. So that being said, the value that this renovation and this improvement to my very dear neighborhood is welcome. We believe that the developer has been open and available to us. As a matter of fact, I'm the one who caught the developer at the door at the last meeting and said, hey, if you're going to take out some trees, I have 2 properties and we had a serious loss of trees last year through that heat. And if there's any way for us to, that to be made available, and I just heard her mention it, I don't know how that works. It was an ask. That's how responsive they've been. They contacted our family some time ago and asked us what we thought, and then asked us to talk to our neighbors, which we did, and gathered people. And that's the kind of developer that I want in my neighborhood. This is the kind of project that I want in my neighborhood to increase density so that I can have more amenities. And I have no idea what these people are talking about, that there's no grocery store, because I can walk to Food City and get groceries, and I can go 2.8 miles from my house to Fry. I don't know what they're talking about. We have grocery stores in our neighborhood. Would I like to have bigger and better grocery stores in our neighborhood? Yes, but I need more people, and I need the value of the North Tempe to increase, which this will do. So I'm in favor of it on those levels. And now my time is ended. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, the next card I have here is from Lane Caraway. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and City staff. Like so many of these people here, I've lived in my home coming up 26 years in Cavalier Hills. Prior to that, like Georgia, I lived at not Scottsdale Gateway, but Fox Tree Apartments, which is the same complex, for almost 5 years looking for somebody to pass away in my neighborhood so I could move in. So I have history there. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly coming out of that complex. It's gotten better, but there's still a lot of issues with this. It's an older complex. It's seen better days. I want to resonate what everybody's saying about the Coleridge group. They have reached out. Wendy's been great. Susan from Technical Solutions, she actually held an emergency meeting in my neighborhood, given 2 days notice on a Saturday. And Jeff came from the city of Tempe to represent the city of Tempe there. So with that being said, this is great. We actually have developers that want to work with the community and want what's best. What Julie just said about a grocery store, we want a better grocery store, but these people don't seem to grasp the concept we have to have density. Without this project, we're not going to go anywhere. We've stagnated for nearly 30 years up in my area. When I have a meeting with somebody, I have one option: bikini beans, which some people don't have a problem with, but some people do. We have to go to Scottsdale if we're going to have a meeting. We have nothing. Starbucks, they say all the drug tweakers, they can't have a patio. They can't have anybody indoors. So we have nothing up there to even sit down and have a cup of coffee except for bikini beans. So with that problem, I'm getting lost here because I wrote this and I can't even read my notes. As far as affordable housing goes, they're really not that affordable. You go right across the street from this complex, those rents are lower than there. You go behind my house, 700 East Weber, they're lower. So all around North Tempe, we do have what's considered affordable housing by these standards. So I pretty much for almost 2 years have spoken to my neighbors. I've spoken to people north of McKellips, east of Scottsdale Road. Everybody's for this project. They think it's great because it's going to generate and start having things. In closing, I'm going to have to say this. Why are all these people in South Tempe sticking their nose into a project that is nowhere near their homes?
Oh, who? I'm sorry, who said?
I did.
So please, sir, you cannot, no more outbursts, please.
With that being said.
And I'll give you 10 more seconds, because.
Okay. I actually
Please, yeah.
had Judy Tabscott and Ron have been in my neighborhood spreading these lies about this complex. It's beyond me that you would do these type of tactics. And I really would like the city of Tempe, they need to look into addressing these issues. I wouldn't be comfortable going down to speaking on something that I have no business in.
And that's time, so.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right, any other speakers this evening? Yes, sir, please come forward. State your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name's Angus. I live in Cavalier Hills in North Tempe. I'm going to switch subjects a little bit and talk directly to the city here instead of about the development. I've gone back and forth on this development. There's some pieces I like. There's some pieces I could see it come down from 5 stories to 4. But they've been accommodating, and I hope they stick to their word there. What I would like to speak about is the street itself. I live directly across the street from this apartment complex and on the south side of McKellips, facing north. They showed the bikeability of the complex, and I think that's nice that they have that. The problem I have with McKellips Road is there is no bike lane, and there is no bike lane planned to be on that street. On top of that, the speed limit, in my opinion, is a little bit too high. It's a 45, and it's 5 lanes wide across the way there. When you meet College, it goes to 35, and I think that when you're pulling out of residential driveways onto 45, I'd encourage you to come and stand in my front yard and wait for the bus to come by going almost 60 miles an hour. If that's something that the city could look at for this development, I could be supportive of this project. I don't live in this apartment complex, so I can't speak to relocating people, and I won't. But I think that the city itself could have a look at how we look at lanes there, look at the speed there, and overall make it a safer environment. It's a little bit tight on the south side there with no bike lanes going both directions. It is Tempe Gateway, is what it will be called. It is the gateway to Tempe. Let's also make it the gateway to Papago Park with a multimodal transportation, including walkability and bikeability. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council on this project? If so, please get my attention. Mr. Martinez, yes, please come forward. State your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Mario Martinez. I was not planning on addressing this issue. I live in Tempe, excuse me, I live in Tempe. I wasn't planning on addressing this issue, which I am against it as proposed, but the comment about people in South Tempe being concerned about it, excuse me, I've lived in every part of Tempe possible, lived and work. And I'm not proud of it because I'm from Flagstaff and I hate this heat. I still hate this heat, but I live here, okay? But the thing is not only did I live up there and build houses there that are affordable at Marlboro, I mean, we are concerned about this place. My city is responsible for establishing an acceptable project there. And the idea that someone from South Tempe cannot care about what goes on up there, I do. My wife works at ASU. My son lives at basically University in Rural. He goes to ASU. How could we not be concerned about old people, elderly people getting kicked out of their houses? And let's see, as far as, who cares who has the concern? I noticed that the developer's attorney is Hugh Hallman. I mean, my God. I mean, it definitely looks like payback for him. I mean, in some respects, he was the one that wrote the Coyotes deal that got shot down. If he could have a say in this and his law firm, then so can I. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council on this item? If so, please get my attention. All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing or public testimony portion, which means I'm going to go back to either comments by council or if people have questions for Ms. Riddell, we can do that. I know I've got several things, but Vice Mayor, I'll let you go ahead and start.
Okay, could I have Wendy come back up, please? I just have some questions for you. Thank you for coming up.
Of course, Vice Mayor.
Yes. Does it have affordable housing now, this current project?
Mayor, Council, no, this is market rate housing currently. It is not affordable housing.
Okay, thank you. I really like it that you met with the neighbors, give them an opportunity to speak about the project, so good job on that. 2028, it gives people a long time to relocate. And tell me about how you're going to help people relocate a little bit.
Certainly. It does strike me as I listen to the testimony, my client is a little bit in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. They have owned this property since 2012. Okay. I think you've heard universally they've been good landlords. They have continued to reinvest and keep it up. But it is, in fact, a dated site that is in need of being redone and dated and tired, as you heard from some of the testimony. The idea here is by doing it over 3 phases, we have the ability to relocate people from the first phase into phase number 2 or phase number 3, or a sister property they have up the road called Chazelle. It's up the road just a little bit on Miller. And so anyone who has been a resident since that date in November of 23, and they've been a resident in good standing, is eligible for our relocation plan. So they'll be allowed to continue there on yearly leases Ultimately, when we know we're hitting that construction date, which we anticipate being in 2028, we will in writing advise them that they've got 1 year till we start construction. We've got a designated person that will help with the relocation. We've got negotiated discounts with moving companies and someone that will actually physically help coordinate on site, as well as we're offering vouchers for those residents of $500 for that moving cost, helping them find one of those places and then physically helping them move to them.
So if they're elderly, they'll be able to get help moving?
Yes.
Okay, because that was brought up. So I'm just trying to address some of the issues that were brought up by the members tonight.
Even if they're not elderly, frankly.
Okay, great, thank you. I love it that you have a dog park. That is a great way to meet your neighbors. It's something that's near and dear to my heart. I mean, there's nothing better than taking your dog down and meeting your neighbors and letting the dogs run like crazy.
We agree.
Yes, get them out of the apartment for a while. So I love the design of it. It's got a lot of movement, which I think looks really cool. It'll really improve the community. I like that the trees that you're going to plant are going to be desert-friendly trees. It's really important that people realize that pine trees take a lot of water, and the desert trees do not take nearly as much water, and they're more likely to succeed and grow to be nice big shade canopies. I like it that you have bicycles that are so close. They're so close to the lake. You know, it's going to be a great opportunity for people to get exercise. So that's important to me. With the gentleman that brought up about the speed and the bicycles.
It was a great comment.
Yeah, it was. So I think we should look at that and maybe slowing traffic down there and making sure that the bicycles have a lane that's very safe for them.
I think ultimately that's going to require the transportation department. I mean, I'm nodding my head along because I agree with the comment, but ultimately that's a transportation comment to the city. So.
Okay, so I would ask transportation to maybe be able to comment on that, wherever they are. There they are. Hi, Eric. Okay, great. You're in the cheap seats tonight. Okay. I took a lot of notes. The green building code is something that Councilmember Chin and I have been leading on this, and so I'm really glad that that's included in the project without having to be asked and harassed about it. So thank you for including that. What will be your contribution to Hometown for All? That was brought up tonight also.
Mayor and Vice Mayor, I do not know the actual dollar figure. I can work to figure that out between now and the next hearing. I can tell you we are committed to contributing to Hometown for All. I believe it's 20% equivalent to our building permit fees. I just don't know what that dollar figure is.
Okay.
It would occur over three separate times, because again, we're looking at essentially 3 separate projects that tie together. But I'll work to see if we can refine what that actual number is. I just don't know that.
That'd be great for next time. Corey, you know, as far as housing goes, Corey Woods leads the nation in Hometown for All housing initiatives. And I think that's really important to point out, because he is actually going across the country and talking about how great our housing is doing. So I'm very protective of Corey in this, and very respectful of his efforts. And we are leading the country in our housing. So I want to point that out. Are you going to have more parking than they have now currently for the future
Yes,
project?
we're parking at a 1.78 ratio, which I think is more than sufficient parking.
Okay, so they most likely won't be parking in front of the folks' houses?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm a huge supporter of North Tempe. I lived in North Tempe for some time. And most of the North Tempe residents are supportive of this project. And I think that is important, that because they're in their neighborhood, and that's, I always believe that the neighborhood should have the most say in their own neighborhoods. And that's consistent with my stance. That ends my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you for the compliment as well. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Navarro, and then Councilmember Chin, then Councilmember Garland.
No, thank you, and thank you, Wendy, and thank you everyone that's come up and spoke about this. I know that there might be oppositions both ways here and there, but I will tell you this: over my 16 years of being on the council, I can honestly say the one thing that I have heard over and over and over again is, what are you guys going to do for North Tempe? How are you going to improve North Tempe? When are we going to get a better retailer, a better strip mall, a better something or another in North Tempe? How are you going to highlight us? This is one way we do this. I know that we have taken great strides. Vice Mayor has taken great strides in helping us, taking the county island away, trying to get that developed, trying to make that look good. Because correctly, yes, as you turn off the freeway and you come into Tempe, that's what you look like when you go north. And it's not impressive. The fact that we have an opportunity to do something that these residents have told me over the years, and I've walked these neighborhoods over a course of 4 different times on getting elected, but hearing the issues. And I can honestly say, unanimously, people want improvement in their area. Right now, they have transition housing. Right now, they have transition housing that we're, as a city, trying to help homeless and trying to get them better housing. They're taking their punches already on having those things in their neighborhood. The fact that we're trying to improve their neighborhood, trying to hopefully cat a corner, help a food city or help a strip mall, working with Pollock to make sure that we can have even better services or a better food store, something unique, different from Scottsdale or anywhere else within the area. And I hate to say this, when you live in North Tempe, you might shop in Scottsdale. When you live in South Tempe, you might eat in Chandler. You might eat in Phoenix. The cities blend across everything else. We don't exclusively just stay in one city and confine in one city. We work within our neighborhood. I lived up there off Weber. I lived off in the condos for 2 years over there. It was affordable. Still is today. The prices are going up. This complex is market rate. It's not affordable. I'm looking at the prices right now for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath from $1,000 to $2,000, depending on where you're going to pick. 2 bedrooms, $1,000 to $3,000. It's going to go up. The thing is, this neighborhood and this complex has problems. It's going to continue having problems, and one day it's going to get wiped down. It's got cast iron steel. It's getting to this point where those things are going to have to get fixed, and it's going to be at a cost. And the owner right now has done a great job on trying to improve the area and trying to improve it as best they can, but there is a time. Scottsdale Road is creeping down. If you've ever noticed, past Continental, there's open land and there's going to be more apartments coming in that are going to be higher end and higher quality, and it's going to look a lot better. Scottsdale is improving their landscape. I expressed to the city, we tried to improve the landscape in that area. We did a decent job, but it didn't do a great job. We have curbing that needs to be redone. We have streets that need to be redone in that area. This is a shot in the arm to help that thing, help that area actually improve all the way down towards the river bottom. And I put that on the city to hopefully engage in that, because this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to work with Pollock. This is an opportunity any other retailer to help with the landscapes to improve that area. The kid that came up here, I'm sorry, the gentleman that came up here, younger than me, he had a great point. The biking needs to be improved. Great point. The speed needs to be lower in that area. We've seen on the news just recently deaths and car accidents. The Starbucks. I don't know how many times I've gotten phone calls to the fact that we can't even drink a coffee on outside of Starbucks anymore because they closed it. They won't have that anymore because of the elements and the personnel that's coming around that area. This is once again a shot in the arm. And I know I'm not going to please everybody. You know, we can't please everybody on every move we make here. But I will stand by this product. I will stand by it because it's a shot in the arm for what North Tempe wants. And I've heard it over and over again. I think we're going to do our justice. We've had harder cases on taking people out of their homes because as much as you want them to stay within that area as best you can, we've done a great job within the city to make sure the transition of people and the families get to a better location as best as possible. We did not do this, and we try not to surprise people with next day evictions. So at the end of the day, I'm a little bit passionate about this because I do want to see improvement. I don't live there day to day. You guys do. I visit there often. I go by there often, but I don't have to deal with the day-to-day that you guys have to do. This is your area. Once again, we talk about character areas. Once again, we talk about neighborhoods. It's your neighborhood. I've listened to neighborhoods in South Tempe that didn't want a wall moved back and wanted to put back. Their neighborhood. I'll vote with them. That's their neighborhood. Same with this. Have my support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me next go to Councilmember Chin.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have 2 points I want to clarify, 2 facts. The first one is, and I may look to staff to verify this, I believe there is a streetscape improvement, I think that was questioned, along Scottsdale Road. City Manager, can you help me with that?
Yes,
Is that true?
That is in the final design phase on Scottsdale Road, Continental to Scottsdale, Curry, new trees, curb improvements, bike lanes. We've been working with the businesses, I should say Eric Iverson and his team been working with the businesses for the bike lanes expansion.
Great, good. Okay, thank you. The second item, and I thought I heard this, but I want to verify. So this property, it's the same owner who has had it for since 2012?
2012,
Okay.
correct.
And it is a development that is currently 45 years old.
My running joke, Councilwoman, is I went to law school to avoid math, but I can tell you it was fully constructed by 1979.
Okay, 45 years old, I believe. And so their intention with this is to reinvest.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Unequivocally.
Thank you. Councilmember Garland?
I had a couple things. I think everybody here has been stating some of the things. So I had this huge list right here, but I now only have one thing to say. I appreciate that somebody had brought up about the streetscape. I was going to mention the same thing that Councilmember Chin just did. The other thing was about the police station. We are building another police station in North Tempe. We are actively right now identifying a location for it. It is in our CIP. It is coming. So just so you know that we are adding those resources to North Tempe. So I just want to add that to the rest of the discussion. But I appreciate what you are bringing here. And as we keep saying, we need to add the density if we want to bring in, if we want to get those empty storefronts, we want businesses back in there. If we need to have the traffic, we need to have the people, and that density is going to be able to do that for us. So a number of people have mentioned that already, but I just wanted to say that also. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Keating?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, to kind of piggyback what Councilmember Garland said, a lot's already been said, but I do want to touch on some points. It's funny, the different areas of the city, right? North of the lake has been asking for some sort of redevelopment since I've been on council, some sort of attention. People have this a false perception that the city council only caters to certain areas of the city. I had a conversation with a woman over the weekend that was insistent that all we cared about was downtown. And, you talk to people in 85281 and say, all you care about is South Tempe, when really it's the market that drives where development comes, right? We don't get a project brought to us and we say, let's put that project here. We don't, this is not how our system works. There's a very strong property rights state, and I won't go into all that, but a comment that Mr. Caraway said, I think really resonated with me, because I've lived north of the lake on 3 different occasions. I lived in the same apartment complex and unit at La Mirage on Gilbert there, right next to where Carvana is now, on 2 non-consecutive occasions. And I lived across the street from Mr. Caraway on Sunset there. So I've spent a number of years north of the lake, and he's absolutely correct. This goes back to 2003, of course. He's absolutely correct that that area has stagnated, and it has been stagnant for a very, very long time. And thanks to some of the efforts by the vice mayor, and I could credit her for the county annexation effort, and I also plug Councilmember Navarro and myself on that because we served in that working group as well. It's now kind of becoming North Tempe's time, where we're starting to see developments come to that area. We're starting to see the density come to that area, which will then bring with it additional amenities to the people that currently live there. So I think we see that in the comments of the neighbors who are in support saying, hey, these adding density, adding people to my area will clean up some of the issues we have with regards to crime, with regards to homelessness, but it will also bring in new amenities to this area as well. So I kind of see north of the lake Tempe, because north is subjective, as this is kind of North Tempe's time. It's starting to come. It's morning in north of the lake Tempe. And this is one of those projects that I think it would be a great addition to that area. Councilmember Chin, I loved your comments. It's kind of talking about, this is the same owner who currently owns it. They're trying to reinvest into our city. This isn't a flip and burn thing where we're going to redevelop it. But like we see every now and then, this is someone who's invested in the city and trying to, upgrade essentially. Not necessarily pricing, but just something nicer, higher quality, and that will bring more amenities and more people to that area. So I see this as a win for the city, and I know that the developer is going to work with the current residents to see if we can't get them places in the new development. And I hope that the gentleman who spoke earlier will take a hard look at that, because he talked about how much he lived there. He lived there for a long time and really likes it. I'm hoping that he'll take a look at that, and maybe he will find that he likes the new development that he is a resident of just as much as he currently does. But this is a needed project for this area, and I'm thankful that it is coming, and I hope that it passes here when we hear it again at the end of the month. So that's my comments, Mayor. Appreciate the time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hodge?
Okay, thank you. I can say everybody's probably, I had a whole list of things to ask and everybody's already asked the question. So I guess when you wait to the last, you get it like that. But I also just want to say one more time, I appreciate the fact of how you guys are looking in the future and making sure that no one will be misplaced, that they're looking at that early. You have that in your plan to make sure that our residents that are there will have a place to be and place to go after, if they want to be a part of the next part of this, phase or somewhere else, that you're already looking towards that. I just want to thank you for that. And as my colleagues have said, I've lived my whole life in North Tempe. Not as north as this, but in North Tempe. And North Tempe has been a place that has not been developed since I've been here. And I've been here since I was a child. I lived my whole life in Tempe. And I'm happy and appreciated that we are looking at North Tempe. We are developing and making it, we are getting a police station, to get a larger a larger grocery store. We do need more people. So this is things that we're looking for. We've heard, and a lot of people have told me the same thing. Well, our council has always cared more about South Tempe or Central Tempe more than North Tempe. But this is one of the times that I'm glad that we're looking, and I hope to continue on and development and making sure we make North Tempe proud and feel like they are a part of Tempe as well as every other part of it. But thank you so much for your presentation tonight, and I'm not going to keep you guys any longer.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you. I actually have a few questions here, I think, that haven't been asked yet, but just things that came up over the course of the public testimony. So one thing regarding the relocation plan, and this is actually probably less of a question and more of a request. And I was going to see if you could actually work with our city attorney, Mr. Anderson, because one of the questions that we've seen a couple of people raise online is, we hear these sort of conversations about a relocation plan, but what about that relocation plan is actually enforceable by the council or by the city? And I know one of the concerns becomes it's not questioning you personally, but it becomes, hey, this comes up, then the council recesses for the summer, or we're gone for a few months, and everyone kind of forgets about some of the conversations that happened. And next minute, we start getting concerns about the relocation plan, and we're all trying to recall how that conversation went during that public hearing. So I guess my request would be, and I appreciate you talking about that extensively with the residents in here this evening, but if you could work with Mr. Anderson before the June 27th meeting to actually find a way to get something like that into the development agreement language or something of that nature. I will leave the lingo up to the two of you as the attorneys, not the guy who was just pre-law for a couple of years, to see if we could work out something, because I think that would also give a lot of residents a lot of additional comfort if we know that, this is something that actually is enforceable by the city council or by the city to make sure that it actually totally takes place. So is that possible?
Mr. Mayor, would be delighted to work with Mr. Anderson to come up with some language to make sure that's in the record. Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. One of the other questions I had that someone raised was about parking and about the concerns about, I think it's about 910 units that are being proposed here. So is there going to be enough parking on site to house all of the people that would live at this development so the parking is not spilling out into the adjacent neighborhoods?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So we're parking at a rate of 1.78 per unit. So yes, there is more than enough parking. I think that's 1,625 total spaces.
Okay.
So we're very comfortable that we, as I'm sure this council knows, 1.78 is actually higher than most of the projects you
Right.
see come before you. So we're very confident that we've got sufficient parking.
No, absolutely. And just as a random note too, I know that we've been talking about, especially in the downtown and along Apache Boulevard and some of our more kind of urban core sections of town, reducing some of those parking ratios because the council's been very committed to building more housing in all of the different income categories. And it's been, hey, we don't want to add parking where we could actually be putting housing, especially in a city that's just a little under 40 square miles. We'd rather add units than actual parking. But in this situation, I do think the parking is absolutely very necessary to ensure that as we are nearly doubling the number of units that would be in the current Scottsdale Gateway complex, that all of these people can actually be housed at the property and not be parking in the neighborhood. So I appreciate hearing that you are exceeding even the requested parking ratio. Other thing, this is just a comment, and I just appreciate you pointing this out, but I do think it really is really critically important to say once again that this project does not require a general plan amendment. Had the 2050 plan not passed from voters, it would have required a general plan amendment for full disclosure and transparency to anyone still here or anyone watching. But the fact that the general plan 2050 did pass does mean that this project is not going to require any kind of general plan amendment whatsoever. And folks heard my concern about the previous project that was in front of us, that it was going to require a general plan amendment, and that was what the pushback was. But in this situation where you're not going to require a general plan amendment, that makes me a lot more favorable, because I believe that not only do I think that it's a good project, but our residents have clearly sanctioned that kind of project by a 60 to 40 sort of margin. So I wanted to make sure I made that point. Just a couple of other things too, and this is probably more of a staff question, but I mean, one of the biggest things that's been brought up here has been about affordable housing and, sort of, is this affordable housing or is it not affordable housing? But I wanted to know, I mean, I see Tim Birch, if he's able to come and speak to that from a staff standpoint, because the reason why I asked this question is because the example I would use is when people talk about historic properties. Many times people will say, well, don't tear that building down, it's historic. No one said that this particular apartment complex is historic, but you do hear that quite frequently. But historic is actually not just simply about something being old, it's because there is something about that building that has had it added to a statewide or a national register of historic places. Sometimes people use the term historic loosely, but it actually is a term that means something. And the parallel I'm drawing here is affordable housing, workforce housing, market rate housing all have specific income levels actually attached to it to actually be designated as affordable. Sometimes the term affordable is just thrown around, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is affordable according to what we consider current rates and incomes to be. So I'm just curious, based on what we know here, and I know Councilmember Navarro talked about some of the rates that he saw from looking up the site, would this be technically considered affordable housing under HUD standards or under even statewide housing standards?
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Member of Council, Tim Birch, Community Health and Human Services, for the record. So there are two types of affordable housing, those that are federally subsidized and built as affordable housing, typically directed toward individuals who are making 30 or 50% of area median income, and they have a 30-year affordability period that developer, typically a nonprofit developer, has to maintain. This project is not that. It does not have that technical affordable housing development on it. There's also something called naturally occurring affordable housing, typically older properties in a C-grade apartment complex that have dipped into that because of the amenities and the age of the project that can be afforded in a space. The area median income, and what we typically look toward in our area, Maricopa County, is $101,000 is the area median income standard for a family of four. So if you're looking at anything that is 80% of area median income or below, meaning a family of four making about $81,000 a year, they could afford approximately $1,800 a month, two-bedroom, two-bath apartment, plus utilities, and still be under 30% of their total income going toward rent. That's the loose definition of affordability without getting into that technical development, which is specific and federally subsidized.
Okay, sounds good. No, thank you. That is my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
The last couple of things, and I promise I will go ahead and wrap this up. A couple of things that were noted. I know some of the concerns that have been raised about this project were regarding the phasing, about it, no construction starting till the year 2028, so about roughly, I would say, maybe 3.5 to 4 years from now, but also the phasing over a 10-year period. And I know that was raised as a concern during the Development Review Commission meeting, and it's also been raised by a couple of people tonight, so I want to acknowledge that. I guess you could look at it both ways. There could be concerns about, well, will the developer still have all the cash on hand to do all of the phases, or could something happen that might change those things? So I think that's a relevant concern, and I appreciate people bringing that up. At the same time, though, I do believe the flip side of that argument is when you're talking about relocating people who currently live in an apartment complex, the phasing, I think, allows you to relocate people responsibly. If you're doing it all over a 12 or 18 to 24 month period, that to me is what would appear to be rushed and could cause people to be displaced in such a way that would seriously disrupt their lives and disrupt their ability to work or childcare or frankly anything else. And we talked about seniors a lot. My dad will be 85 years old in the next couple of weeks. So when I hear seniors, that's the first visual that pops into my mind at all times. But in this situation, I mean, I choose to look at the 10-year phasing of a project like this when you're actually talking about a relocation plan that could be etched in stone as a responsible way of making sure that you can relocate people and not actually really upend or uproot their lives in a way that could really be truly catastrophic. So I do think the other perspective on it is a rational one, and I appreciate people bringing that up as a concern, but I do think that the phasing of this, frankly, helps the relocation process and it doesn't hurt it. The last thing I just say about, the developer themselves, and I know Councilmember Chin touched on this a little bit, that Coleridge has owned this property since 2012, so now for about 12 years. And one of the things that I have appreciated hearing some of the stories from folks who currently live at the complex or even lived at the complex previously is that it is very well maintained. When you actually go on the grounds, it still is a nice place. It might have been built back in 1979 or so, but it actually still was a very well-maintained property. But I do believe that that speaks to the quality of the developer, quite honestly, and the fact that they have chosen to continue the maintenance and the upkeep of an older property. We've heard stories all over the country, and I'm never encouraging something like this, but we've heard stories about people at the point that a company makes the decision that they're going to redevelop a property, all of a sudden they stop investing in everything, and the landscaping goes to absolute crap, and they're not upgrading the utilities or the washing machines or the dryers or things of that nature, and basically trying to, in a certain way, kind of force the existing occupants out by just making the property so low grade that eventually people feel like even if their leases aren't going to be renewed, they're going to have to move out anyway because simply the quality of the property is not up to present day living standards. So when I actually hear people talk about the fact that folks are still living here and that the property has been very well maintained, that to me makes me even more comfortable, frankly, with the development group, because it shows me that even though they know that they're talking about reinvesting and actually taking the property down in phases to build something new, and from my perspective, as everyone's talked about, build much needed housing that we do need in Tempe, and especially that section of North Tempe, I really am, it makes me believe that these are people who are responsible and not simply completely disinvesting in the property while people are still living there in their 60s, 70s, and 80s and making their lives extremely uncomfortable. Because we have absolutely, all of us in this room, I'm sure, have seen news stories about this, not even just in the state, but frankly, nationally. And I think that's frankly appalling. And so the fact that that hasn't been done in this situation and they're continuing to put money in it and make sure the people who can live there are living so comfortably and with their dignity, I think really is critically important and gives me a lot more confidence. So with that said, I know once again, we are not voting on this project this evening. I know that this is going to come back on June 27th, but I will state this last, and I'll probably repeat this at the meeting on the 27th. A lot of folks have talked about the conversations that we've had with a lot of the residents in the North Tempe Neighborhood Association or Cavalier Hills. I first ran for council unsuccessfully back in 2006, but then I know myself and Councilmember Navarro were elected in 2008, so we've been doing this for a long time together. And this is one of the conversations that I've been having, whether it's with Darlene Justice or Kim Gaffney-Loza or Lane Caraway, and a lot of people in that area for quite some time. They have said, we have seen a lot of investment take place in the downtown, along Apache Boulevard where light rail is, and a lot of other parts of the community that are really reaping the benefit of a lot of reinvestment that's going on. But we feel like our section of Tempe and now what is now 85288 has frankly largely been sometimes forgotten by the city, and you don't see a lot of private sector investment in this area. And we desperately need it in terms of having more housing and different demographics to get some of the amenities like a better grocery store, better restaurants, better coffee shops, a wine bar, and other amenities that are really critically important to their way of life. And I know those people have been longtime neighborhood advocates. They haven't been neighborhood chairs for 3 or 4 years. They've been there for 10, 20, 30 years, really trying to steward these neighborhoods in a very responsible way. And this has been a consistent drumbeat that they've made to me and many members of the council since I first got involved in public service well over 15 years ago. So I just want to make sure that I point that out, that this is the kind of thing that they were talking about when I was first dipping my toe in the water in public service in the city of Tempe. And I've seen that they're very excited about the possibility of a development like this coming to North Tempe. So with that said, I will be done for the evening. Is there anyone else has any further comments or questions before we move on? Okay. All right, sounds good. I will go ahead and just remind everyone that the second and final public hearing on this item is scheduled for June 27th, 2024. Next up, we're going to go back to item 8B1, which is to introduce and hold the first public hearing to adopt an ordinance for a zoning map amendment from CSS TOD and R4 TOD to MU4 TOD, a planned area development overlay to establish development standards, and a development plan review for a new 5-story mixed-use development consisting of 256 dwelling units with 13 live-work units on 3.92 acres for Sterling Tempe, located at 1202 South Terrace Road. The applicant is Snell and Wilmer, LLP. Good evening, Mr. Wood. Good to see you again.
I'm back. Mayor, members of the council, Nick Wood, Snell Wilmer, 1 West East Washington Street, and I represent Dinnerstein. I have visited with each of you on this project. It has a very strong recommendation of support from staff. DRC loved it so much, they put it on the consent agenda. So we didn't have to do a presentation. So with that, I'm going to take all of 10 minutes, again, since I've shown it to you all, but just quickly, the site you're very familiar with, there used to be a very weird green color on the thing. It's just an old building, and its time has come. There's a Gila monster painted on the side of it years ago. So that's a 4-story building. It'll be demolished, and we'll have a very cool project to replace it with. Here it is. Yeah, no accounting for taste and color. Again, here's the site. The site next to it's been vacant, but it's part of the project for a while. Dinnerstein, great national developer. Actually, we did the project called Atlas Kierland for them. They do quality work. People like them, right? Working with staff, working with their team. You know, people just like them, and there's a reason, because they're just very, very good and responsible developers. Existing zoning, basically R4, and commercial shopping center services. We're changing it to MU4. As the mayor mentioned, we do not have to do a general plan amendment. The 2050 plan resolved that for us. Here you can see where the plan fixed that for us. Conceptual site plan, very well designed, very functional project that really works. One of the keys is the live-work component. We did the canvas, as some of you may remember, just up the block. And our other client, Toll Brothers, recently purchased it over this past year. They rave about those live-work units. They said, we wish, when you did the original zoning, you did another 50 of them, because they really are very popular, and it really gives students the ability to actually start their own businesses, which is absolutely awesome. We have access into the garage, both from Lemon as well as from Terrace, and amenities are interior to the courtyard, so we keep all of the students there. We have a really nice, pull-in, which I'll show you here in a minute, but basically it's a 4-acre site. We have, 256 units. We have 62 one-bedrooms, 32 twos, 5 threes, and 150 fours. We're parking it at 0.55. which these days is a little overparked. But again, the idea is we have a big piece of land at 4 acres. So it works, and Dinnerstein's experiences that ratio works very well for them. Here's a shot of the landscape rendering. Again, working with staff, we've got very cool landscaping up and down Terrace, as well as on Lemon. You can see where the motor court is and where the entry is to the garage, both off of Terrace as well as off of Lemon Street. Sustainability, very big on sustainability. That's one of the hallmarks. And, you know, the project materials, you can see, this is a wonderful looking design. What's interesting is, I think I've done 9 student housing projects in the past several years. And we've stayed away from balconies. Balconies, when they're done right, are a very nice amenity to a building. And staff had encouraged us to use balconies. Now, ASU is not a big fan of balconies for several reasons. One is they don't want their students throwing things off the balcony, including themselves, and they don't want, you know, balconies connected. So here, the balconies are recessed to give some depth, actually, which really works. And you can see how we've got the articulated surfaces, a lot of movement, a lot of visual interest, you know, landscaping at the base. This design is really superior. The architect did just a wonderful job. And again, working with staff, right, to come up with something that's really just absolutely lovely. And here's the motor court. This is so cool. You know, kids especially use Uber, Lyft. They get picked up and dropped off by their friends. This is so functional, but it looks nice. And it's a nice looking element to this. And of course, the corner, which you see here, again, makes a statement. It's almost like a sense of arrival when you come here. And being right here on light rail is absolutely perfect. So with that, I'm done.
All right, thank you. Just a quick note before I go to Councilmember DeVar, just want to note that the summary sheet for this item in the agenda packet mistakenly indicated that the Development Review Commission approval was subject to modified conditions, but however, no modifications were made to the conditions at the DRC hearing, so it should instead read subject to conditions. So this correction is going to be made for the second and final hearing report for the June 27th City Council packet. So I wanted to make sure I read that into the record. With that, Councilmember DeVar.
Thank you, Mayor. Nick, if you want to go ahead and turn back to the aerial shot, this is going to be a reference.
Sure.
That one. That dirt lot right there?
Yes.
That's where this cut on my hand came from. That was the junkyard. I lived, but it was not there anymore.
We're sorry.
Yeah. Looked like it was almost still there with all those other cars in there. So anyways, growing up next to this facility, I would often, my 8-year-old brother at the time would try to get me to go into the swimming pool, which we never got into apparently. And I don't even know if we could swim at the time, but he was trying to get me. Usually he gets me to do all these things. But I have to say that you've had this before and you did a good job keeping it alive. And this was a perfect blend, especially for the neighborhood, especially for that corner. What a strategic corner that is too. It's beautiful. I think it's a home run, and I love the live work elements to that. I think that's a real neat concept, especially at ASU, and kind of the abilities of the innovation of what ASU does and lets their students do, and you're doing it here. So perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Before, actually, we'll say I'll do Vice Mayor, then I've got to open up the public testimony portion, but Vice Mayor, go ahead.
Yes, I love the project. I think it's so cool looking, and I will be voting yes on it in 2 weeks.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right. Anyone else right now? Okay, well, let me go ahead then and open the public testimony portion, Mr. Wood, and we might bring you back. We might not. We'll see. So, all right, let's see here. All right, so the card I have here this evening is from Ann Till. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Ann Till, Tempe resident, and I don't have an opinion for or against the project. but it looks pretty, and maybe it could use some shade in some of the areas that Mr. Wood said were inviting people in. But my main comment was on displacement because it looked like it was an area that had existing housing. So it's kind of the same comments I had before, and I appreciate on the other units that you requested that the displacement plan be worked with the city. And so just in general on that project, this project, is that when there's any living places that are being torn down that people are living in, it would be great if that could be kind of a standard. And especially to look at elderly residents and have some kind of help line available maybe through Tempe if it's just not working out for them, because that's one of the most vulnerable populations. So I would kind of ask for the same thing on that, but maybe it's for students. I really don't know that area, but I just noticed that it looked like it was a place that people were living in. So thanks.
Excellent, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council on this item? If so, please get my attention. All right, seeing none, I will close the public testimony portion of this. Mr. Wood, just a quick question on my end, because I know that I think we had talked about this before, briefly about this project. This is where the Mark apartments were before, correct?
Mayor, that's correct.
Okay. To Ms. Till's question, just wanted to, are those folks at any sort of risk of displacement? Were there mostly students in that building, or, because I mean, I'm definitely familiar with the complex, so.
It's all students.
Okay.
Right.
All right, sounds good. All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councilmember Garland?
I like this. I think it's the right structure, the right amount of units. I think it's the right thing for that area, so thank you so much. I think, I like the recessed balconies. And yes, I'm one of the ones that's like, oh, balconies and college students, that's dangerous. But these look nice. So thank you so much for doing that. I will ask, because I had mentioned it to Wendy Rydell before she came and did this presentation about the green building codes. They're voluntary. When we come back for the second read, would you be able to let us know if there is anything on there that you can start checking off the box to see if you can do anything with the voluntary green building codes? There's
Sure,
6 departments.
We'll have that. The client said yes.
That would be great, because we'd like to. It is voluntary, but we would like to be able to see that projects are starting to look at that. So I appreciate that. That would be wonderful, and that was my only thing. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else, any further comments or questions? All right, hearing none, sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Wood, appreciate it. Just want to reiterate once again, the second and final public hearing on this item is scheduled for June 27th, 2024. So what we're going to do here now is finish all the 8Bs, and then we'll go back and do the 8As, which we skipped, which means the next item under the section is 8B4, which is to introduce and hold the first public hearing to adopt an ordinance authorizing the partial abandonment of a portion of a water line easement located at a subdivision located north of Warner Road and west of Hardy Drive. This is also a public hearing item, so if there's any public testimony, can you please get my attention? All right, seeing none, council, any comments or discussion? All right, seeing none, the second and final public hearing on this item is scheduled for June 27th, 2024. The next item under the section is 8B5, which is to introduce and hold the first public hearing to adopt an ordinance authorizing the abandonment of a water line easement located on the west side of McClintock Drive and north of Weber Drive. This is also a public hearing item. Is there any public testimony? If so, please get my attention. Seeing none, council, any comments or discussion? All right, then the second and final public hearing on this item is also scheduled for June 27th, 2024. The last item under the section is 8B6, which is to introduce and hold the first public hearing to adopt an ordinance to amend Appendix A Schedule of Fees and Charges, Police of the Tempe City Code to revise existing fees related to the production of police department records and add a new fee for camera video review and redaction. This is also a public hearing item. Is there any public testimony? If so, please get my attention. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that portion of the public hearing. Council, any comments or discussion? All right, the second and final public hearing on this item is scheduled for June 27, 2024. Next up on our agenda is non-consent agenda is ordinances and items for second hearing and final adoption, and a vote on these items will be taken this evening. The only item under the section is 8C1, which is to hold the second and final public hearing to adopt an ordinance to amend Chapter 22, Article 1 of the Tempe City Code relating to offenses miscellaneous by amending Section 22-12 relating to failure to provide information. This is also a public hearing item. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the council during public testimony? Please get my attention. Okay, I will close then the public testimony portion of this. Council, any comments or discussion? Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Garland and seconded by Councilmember Chin. Please vote.
Yes.
Aye.
And that item passes 7-0. All right, now let's go back here to item 8A1. So I should note as well, just for the record, I'll read this. All items listed on the non-consent agenda will be considered separately. Agenda items scheduled for introduction and first public hearing will be heard but will not be voted upon at this meeting. Agenda items scheduled for second public hearing and final adoption will, of course, be voted upon tonight. Council members who may have a conflict of interest may abstain from voting on a matter, and the city clerk will provide the council members with the disclosure form at this time. First up, 8A, miscellaneous items, bids, contracts, and resolutions. 8A1 is to approve a one-year contract renewal with Cigna Dental Health Plan of Arizona Incorporated to provide a dental preferred provider organization plan and dental health maintenance organization plan for eligible city employees and their dependents. Just want to note as well that Human Services advised an edit to the fiscal impact amount from $1.4 million to $1.6 million. Council members, any comments or discussion? Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Navarro and seconded by Vice Mayor Adams. Please vote.
Aye.
Yes.
And that item passes 7-0. The next item under the section is 8A2, which is to award a one-year contract renewal to Sun Life Assurance to provide stop-loss insurance for the city's self-funded medical plan. Council, any comments or discussion?
So move.
It's been moved by Councilmember Hodge and seconded by Vice Mayor Adams. Please vote.
Aye.
Yes.
And that item passes 7-0. The next item under the section is 8A3, which is to approve a two-year contract renewal with Allegiance Benefit Plan Management Incorporated to provide a preferred provider organization, medical network and administration services, flexible spending account administration, and Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act administration services for eligible city employees and dependents. Council, any comments or discussion? Been moved by Councilmember Navarro and seconded by Vice Mayor Adams. Please vote.
Aye.
Yes.
And that item also passes 7-0. The next item under the section is 8A4, which is to approve the utilization of a State of Arizona cooperative contract with Velocity Truck Centers for the purchase of solid waste collection vehicles. Council, any comments or discussion? It's been moved by Councilmember Navarro and seconded again by Vice Mayor Adams. Please vote.
Aye.
Yes.
That item also passes 7-0. The next item under the section is 8A5, which is to award a construction contract to TF Contracting Services, LLC for project number 3221023B, wastewater collection system, ductile iron pipe rehabilitation. Council,
So
any
moved.
comment?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Hodge and seconded by Vice Mayor Adams. Please vote.
Yes.
Aye.
And that item passes 7-0. Which brings me to the last item under the section, which is 8A6, which is to award job order number 6 to Valley Rain Construction Corporation for project number 6308181B, Ramada and Shade Improvements, Alegre, Escalante, Scudder, and Spa Parks, respectively located at 1940 East Don Carlos Avenue, 2150 East Orange Street, 5805 South Lakeshore Drive, and 2600 West Vineyard Road. Council, any comments or discussion?
So move.
It's been moved by Councilmember Navarro and I think seconded by Councilmember Chin. Please vote.
Yes.
Aye.
And that item also passes 7-0. Which brings me to item number 9, current events, council announcements, and future agenda items. Once again, I want to note that council members may request that an agenda item be added to a future council meeting during their allotted time. In accordance with the open meeting law, there should be no discussion on the item other than to clarify the request. And I will now call upon the council members for their comments. And this evening, I will start with Vice Mayor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, one of my new favorite organizations in Tempe is the Arizona Theater Company, and this weekend is the last show for the Tony-nominated play True West. So I'd encourage you, I've seen the play, it's awesome, to go out into the Tempe Center for the Arts and enjoy a beautiful show at the beautiful TCA. Tickets, if you want tickets, you go to atc.org, and you can pick them up there. Park Rangers. Park Rangers are having a community hike this Sunday at 7 a.m. Meet at Papaco North Ballfield parking lot at the Arizona Heritage Center. Park Ranger Jackson Dar will be leading the hike. And it's free, which is always good. And you can go to bit.ly/ranger hike to register. And finally, I lost my spot with all the notes I took this evening, but I can get it back, I think. Yeah, so I got it. So we will be having an SEV meeting on June 17th at 1 p.m. right here in council chambers for our Sustainability and Economic Vitality Council Committee. And we have 3 items on the agenda this month. We will be hearing about bicycling in Tempe, a multimedia experience. We also get an update from municipal utilities on solid waste and landfill diversion. And we'll be having a presentation on apprenticeship program for economic development, just a possibility of one. So we're going to have that. A virtual option is available, and a recording will also be posted on Tempe's Channel 11 YouTube page after the meeting. Thank you. That ends my announcements.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor. Next up, Councilmember Chin.
No announcements.
All right. Thank you so much. Next up, Councilmember Garland.
No announcements.
All right. Thank you so much. Next up, Councilmember Hodge.
Yeah, thank you. I only have 2. I don't know which, I can't see the screen, so I can't see which one they have up.
Breakfast with Burdetta.
Okay, yes, I have Breakfast with Burdetta. It is on June 15th. It is a great one. It's World Elderly Abuse Awareness Day, and it's going to be, we're going to have the Tempe Police, the Sheriff, Maricopa County, Maricopa Attorney, and Tempe Fire, and we're going to be talking about ways to help and to notice and what happens if someone does. So please come out, and this affects everyone sooner or later in life. So thank you. And last but not least, we have our youth summer reading program, and also for our children. So it starts from June 1st to August 1st, and registration already began May 1st. And that is all I have to say. Thank you. Oh, and everybody, welcome. Happy Pride Month, and also happy Juneteenth, because we probably won't see each other before then.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Councilmember Keating told me he doesn't have any announcements this evening. Next up, then, Councilmember Navarro.
I got nothing.
All right. Thank you. And I guess since we're not going to be back before this time, I definitely wanted to wish my dad a very happy 85th birthday on June 17th of this year. And what makes it even more special is my brother will actually be in town on business from June 13th through, I believe, the 16th. So we'll have an opportunity to have not 1, but 2 dinners together as a family, which is wonderful. That's cool. Rarely happens with him living in Virginia and me being out here, but we pulled it off. So happy birthday, Dad. I hope you're watching at home. With that said, that ends my comments, and that brings me to item number 10, public appearances. Just remember to note to the council, too, we have 2 more meetings right after this as well, just so don't try to run off on me. But public appearances here, according to the Arizona, actually, I should say, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to address the council? If so, please come forward and state your name and city of residence for the record. Seeing none, I will close that portion of the hearing, which brings me to item number 11, adjournment. The next regular scheduled city council meeting will be on June 27th, 2024. I'm going to adjourn this meeting, and we're going to take 60 seconds and turn everything around and start the next meeting.